Verse 1. They consult you about the spoils of war. Say, the spoils of war belong to God and the messenger. You shall observe God, exhort one another to be righteous, and obey God and his messenger, if you are believers. So, just want to make a quick comment here. Very interesting. So, people would say, "Oh, this is greedy. The spoils of war belongs to God and the messenger." That it is about greed, but it's not. It's actually very tactical, because if the spoils of war had belonged to everyone, then you would have these warmongers who would justify it and whatever. But this system, the spoils of war belong to God and the messenger, it it prevents people with an ego or the natural jealousy or ego from it triggers it, so people will think, oh, I'm not gonna, why should I like fight if he's the one who's gonna be rich and not me? So I don't know, there's some psychology there to prevent warmongering, because we all know what happens when Prophet Muhammad passed away, how it was abused, how people went frenzy basically, because there was no longer a messenger where which the spoils belonged to. Anyways, continuing, verse 2, subtitle, the true believers. The true believers are those whose hearts tremble when God is mentioned, and when his revelations are recited to them, their faith is strengthened and they trust in their Lord. They observe the contact prayers, salat, and from our provisions to them they give to charity. Such are the true believers. They attain high ranks at their Lord, as well as forgiveness and a generous provision. So that's the true believers. And yes, want to point out, it says, whose hearts tremble when God is mentioned. Obviously, we can't see when our heart is trembling, but yet you have these people who act holy. I think we have all seen such people, even on Facebook, where they act all holy and they tremble physically, like for other people to see, like, ooh, I'm trembling at the when God is mentioned. But obviously you can't see the heart that is trembling, and here the verse is specifically saying whose hearts tremble. So this is an interesting sign for how we can spot hypocrites or dishonest people, because they want to show off. They just want to show off that their heart is trembling, but you can't show a heart that is trembling, so they act in a way pretending to tremble, that they are trembling. That's interesting. Next verse, we are at verse 5, subtitle, the weak believers. And pay close attention, it says weak believers. Believers, okay. When your Lord willed that you leave your home to fulfill a specific plan, some believers became exposed as reluctant believers. I'm emphasizing the word believers. Next verse. They argued with you against the truth, even after everything was explained to them. They acted as if they were being driven to certain death. Recall that God promised you victory over a certain group, but you still wanted to face the weaker group. It was God's plan to establish the truth with his words and to defeat the disbelievers. For he has decreed that the truth shall prevail and the falsehood shall vanish, in spite of the evildoers. So, some quick comments here. These verses were all about weak believers. Even though they were reluctant, they were still believers. It's just that they are weak believers. So what I'm trying to say here is we shouldn't be oppressive or harsh among each other. Like, if we know someone is a weak believer, then let's not harass them, so to speak. But it's interesting that it says here in verse 6, but yet you have this, even after everything was explained to them. So these are believers who have already received all the details, but they were still reluctant. They were still afraid or whatever. They were uncertain. But again, if we go back to verse 5, it says, when your Lord willed that you leave your home. So it was a command from God, basically. So it's difficult to apply that among each other. We can't tell each other, do this or you're going to hell or whatever. Anyways, moving on. Actually, let's quick comment on verse 8. For he has decreed that the truth shall prevail and the falsehood shall vanish, in spite of the evildoers. So don't lose your temper. Don't be angry when you're debating people with the truth. It doesn't matter. The truth will win. You just be calm and patience. You don't have to worry. Just relax, and the truth has already won. So no need to be angry or disrespectful to people or whatever. Okay, we are at verse 9, subtitle, God's Invincible Soldiers. Thus, when you implored your Lord to come to the rescue, he responded to you, I am supporting you with 1,000 angels in succession. Subtitle, Victory Guaranteed for the Believers. God gave you, this is verse 10, God gave you this good news to strengthen your hearts. Victory comes only from God. God is Almighty, most wise. He caused peaceful slumber to overtake you and pacify you, and he sent down water from the sky to clean you therewith. He protected you from the devil's curse, reassured your hearts, and strengthened your foothold. Cause the slumber. I want to hear what everyone has to say about this, about he protected you from the devil's curse. Is it, for example, when there's a culture where people give you the eye? Yeah, I don't know. Where they curse you, and then the jinns, I don't know what happens in that world, but maybe there's an effect, like a domino effect, where the curse and the jinns inspire each other to attack you or whatever, cause you harm or something. That's why we seek refuge in God. I don't know how that works. Continuing. Lessons from history. That's the subtitle. Verse 12. Recall that your Lord inspired the angels. I am with you, so support those who believed. I will throw terror into the hearts of those who disbelieved. You may strike them above the neck, and you may strike even every finger. And pay close attention that this is to the angels, an order to the angels. God is telling the angels to strike above the necks and every finger. I'm saying this because there are people who abuse these verses to hurt other people or whatever. And then there is a footnote concerning this verse that I just read and the subsequent verses up to verse 16. It says from Surah 8, from verse 12 to 16, all wars are governed by the basic rule in Surah 60, verse 8 to 9. So I'm just going to read those quickly for '68. Okay, so this is 60, Surah 60, verse 8. The subtitle is Basic Law Regulating Relations with Unbelievers. God does not enjoin you from befriending those who do not fight you because of religion and do not evict you from your homes. You may befriend them and be equitable towards them. God loves the equitable. I don't know how to pronounce that. Okay, next verse. God enjoins you only from befriending those who fight you because of religion, evict you from your homes, and band together with others to banish you. You shall not befriend them. Those who befriend them are the transgressors. So basically, you can be friends with everyone as long as they don't attack your religion, attack you because of your religion. Very specific. It doesn't say because of your face or job or personality or whatever. It says specifically religion. So let's continue back where we left. So that was verse 12. We are at verse 13. Well, actually, let me go back to verse 12. Lessons from history. Recall that your Lord inspired the angels. I am with you, so support those who believed. I will throw terror into the hearts of those who disbelieved. You may strike them above the necks, and you may strike even every finger. This is what they have justly incurred by fighting God and his messenger. For those who fight against God and his messenger, God's retribution is severe. This is to punish the disbelievers. They have incurred the retribution of hell. O you who believe, if you encounter the disbelievers who have mobilized against you, Do not turn back and flee. Anyone who turns back on that day, except to carry out a battle plan or to join his group, has incurred wrath from God, and his abode is hell. What a miserable destiny. So, got some quick comments here. I forgot to comment about verse 7. Recall that God promised you victory over a certain group, but you still wanted to face the weaker group. So this is just tactical. If, for example, if you face, it is interesting how a lot of this is parallel or even better to The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And people praise that book, The Art of War. It is a great book and whatever. And they use it in business. Every country uses it in their military tactics and whatever. And it's praised globally. But the Quran contains even better tactics and psychology and how to prevent war and maintain peace. Yet it is ridiculed and insulted by the same people who would praise The Art of War by Sun Tzu. So hypocrisy is interesting. The Quran contains much better tactics for maintaining peace. And the reason why I bring up this verse is, if you are 100 men, if you have 100 men and you fight an enemy who's also 100 men, then you have a bigger chance to win. But let's say you have 100 men and you decide to fight a weaker army, the weaker group, like 50 men, then you're still gonna lose 25 to 50 men, while the bigger group, the bigger enemy, still has their 100 men. So you're basically giving away the victory to the enemy, to the bigger group. So this is just tactical. Very interesting. So there's a bigger reason behind all these verses. And then if we go back to the verses I just read, 12 to 16, it says in 15, or if you encounter the disbelievers who have mobilized against you, do not turn back and flee. When you flee, you give them property, you give them land, you basically open up their marching deeper. You allow them to march deeper into your territory, which will expose the weak, the children and the women and the weak men. So it's interesting to see this as a commandment from God. Anyone who turns back on that day, except to carry out a battle plan or to join his group, has incurred wrath from God, and his abode is hell. What a miserable destiny. So, yeah, that's interesting. Because you're literally exposing children and women and all that to an enemy who wants to, who disrupts peace and who just wants to attack you because of religion. Okay, continuing. Verse 17. Subtitle: God is doing everything. This is very heavy wisdom. It was not you who killed them. God is the one who killed them. It was not you who threw when you threw. God is the one who threw. But he thus gives the believers a chance to earn a lot of credit. God is hearer, omniscient. And there's a footnote, Surah 8, verse 17. Believing in God necessitates, I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Necessitates?
Yes, necessitates believing in his qualities, one of which is that he is doing everything. Without knowing God, there is no belief. See Surah 23, verse 84 to 90. Bad things are incurred by us and executed by Satan in accordance with God's laws. See Surah 4, verse 78 to 79, and Surah 42, verse 30. So, and this is why we read the Quran, to learn about God's qualities. For example, there are a lot of people who say they believe in God, and that's it. They just believe in a God. They don't. So, but what does that mean? Who is God? How do you know who God is if you don't know his qualities? And there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, God is love," and that's it. But God is so much more. And if we only believe that God is love, then you don't necessarily know God. Maybe it's a starting point, but to really know God, you have to know God's attributes. You have to know God's qualities. And that's what brings us closer to God. Otherwise, we are believing in a God according to our own definitions. And that's idol worship. So, I'm just going to explain how God is doing everything. What does it mean to really grasp it? Bad things are incurred by us and executed by Satan. For example, God created the law of gravitation, the natural laws as well. But there is something even more than natural laws, and we can read about them in the Quran. Like if you do bad things, then you're gonna get punished. Whether you are a believer or a disbeliever, it doesn't matter. The laws apply to everyone. No one is above them. And God made a law that if you put your finger in the fire, you're gonna burn yourself. If you steal, then you put yourself in Satan's kingdom, and you allow Satan to get to you. And that's how you get punished. Okay, moving on. Verse 18. Additionally, God thus nullifies the schemes of the disbelievers. Then 19. You sought victory, O disbelievers, and victory did come. It belonged to the believers. If you refrain from aggression, it will be better for you. But if you return, so will we. Your armies will never help you, no matter how great, for God is on the side of the believers. O you who believe, obey God and his messenger, and do not disregard him while you hear. So that's an interesting. So the disbelievers won over the believers during a battle, I guess. And then they received a warning: if you refrain from aggression, it will be better for you. But if you return, so will we. So that's interesting. For example, God gives the disbelievers a chance to come back to believe, to believe, to submit. Right? So it's not. So as a believer, you can't say, "Oh, I'm a believer. I'm above other people's rights or whatever." You don't have more rights than anyone else. You don't have access to more provision than a disbeliever. So yeah, it works both way. You win some, you lose some. It's all a test. Right? And the victory, the disbelievers' victory will either work to increase their disbelief or work towards submitting to God, like being appreciative. And in parallel, it will work as a test for the believers. Some will expose themselves as disbelievers because of the defeat, and others will be exposed as true believers because even if they lost, they remained. Their faith, it didn't affect their faith. So that's the system. Okay, moving on. 21, subtitle: The disbelievers blocked out. Do not be like those who say, "We hear," when they do not hear. The worst creatures in the sight of God are the deaf and dumb who do not understand. Had God known of any good in them, he would have made them hearers. Even if he made them hearers, they still would turn away in aversion. That's interesting. Uh, for example, the people who believe in circumcision, that it is from God, and even though we have given them evidence, evidence upon evidence, proof after proof, that it is not part of the religion, they still don't understand, and they they speak they speak and act as if they were deaf and dumb, and with the attitude that I mentioned earlier, where they pretend their hearts are trembling, but they act in their words, the choice of words. They want you to witness that they are holy, they are trembling. It's very difficult to explain it. You have to witness it for yourselves. I think you have. I don't know. I think it's a disgusting behavior. Very cringy. That's the correct word. Yeah, and God calls them the worst creatures. So yeah, that's interesting. Oh wow, yes. Had God known of any good, right? Had God known any good in them? Oh my God! And then what did they do? They went on. What is it? The App Store and gave negative reviews. to, like what a childish. Like, how much hate do you have? How much evil do you have in yourself to lie? I mean, it's so childish. I don't know. We can talk about it later, but it's interesting. Like small things that really expose their evil. It's so interesting. Good in, so, so God is telling us there is no good in them. So, yeah, they are probably gonna give me bad reviews for this. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Okay, moving on. Verse 24. The righteous do not really die. So we're approaching a topic that I found interesting. You will see why. It's gonna be heavy. O you who believe, you shall respond to God and to the messenger when he invites you to what gives you life. You should know that God is closer to you than your heart, and that before him you will be summoned. And then we have footnote, Surah 8, verse 24. See Appendix 17. When the righteous exit their bodies, they go straight to heaven. Let's see where that is. Okay. So a few more verses until verse 25. Beware of a retribution that may not be limited to the evildoers among you. You should know that God's retribution is severe. And there's a footnote, Surah 8, verse 25. A community that tolerates homosexuality, for example, may be hit by an earthquake. Yeah. So this is why we should, if we see evil, speak about it. You know the three monkeys? Speak no evil, hear no evil, see no evil. Okay, moving on. Verse 26, subtitle, God supports the believers. Remember that you used to be few and oppressed, fearing that the people may snatch you, and he granted you a secure sanctuary, supported you with his victory, and provided you with good provisions that you may be appreciative. O you who believe, do not betray God and the messenger, and do not betray those who trust you, now that you know. So, why does it say you used to be few and oppressed, fearing that the people may snatch you? It's because, for a lack of better term, you're loud. Your mouth is always on. You're always pointing out evil. This is wrong. No, this is wrong. This is wrong. That's a sin. You're telling the people. You're not silent. You're telling the people this is wrong. You contact the like the president or whatever. You tell him, oh, this is wrong. Your community leaders, no, this is wrong. You see your neighbor, you remind them this is wrong. Your family, don't do that. This is wrong. So of course you're gonna be in that position where you might make a few enemies or whatever. People might hate you. You will feel oppressed because you are standing up for the right thing. But you should know that God supports the believers. So that's what it's all about. Are you going to stand up for what is right, or are you going to follow the flow and be silent, scared of criticism? Ooh, losing a few friends. Ooh, scary. No, we shouldn't. We should stand up no matter what. Do not betray those who trust you. Right? So, what I wanted to say about this is, if we are messaging each other privately, then we should, then I'm trusting you to keep it private. So, yeah, I'm bringing this up because of something that happened. But it's important that we trust each other. We don't betray each other's trust. And that example was part of it. Like, it's an example of how deep it can go. Money. Okay, next verse 28. Money and children are tests. You should know that your money and your children are a test, and that God possesses a great recompense. O you who believe, if you reverence God, He will enlighten you, remit your sins, and forgive you. God possesses infinite grace. I don't have children, so I don't know what it means that they are a test. Someone else has to discuss that. Oops, where did I go now? But that's interesting. And yeah, money is, of course, a test. We can see it. For example, when you have money, suddenly you have friends you didn't know about. We have all been there, I think. So, yeah, and I see a lot of people giving charity to people they don't know. I'm not gonna say don't give to charity, but at least figure out where your money is going. I mean, I think that's part of this test as well. You know that your money can be a test, because you don't want to give money to someone who is gonna buy alcohol, for example, or whatever. So you're responsible for where your money go. And here's the verse 29, very interesting. O you who believe, if you reverence God, He will enlighten you, remit your sins, and forgive you. God possesses infinite grace. Enlighten you. I'm just going to focus on this word, enlighten. If you reverence God, God will enlighten you. It's an interesting system because, as we all know, disbelievers don't reverence God. Therefore, they don't have access to enlightenment. So that's interesting how that works. It's like a lock mechanism. moving on to verse 30. Okay, this is what I wanted to talk about. God protects his messenger. The disbelievers plot and scheme to neutralize you, or kill you, or banish you. However, they plot and scheme, but so does God. God is the best schemer. There's a footnote, chapter 8, verse 30. God chose his final prophet, Muhammad, from the strongest tribe of Arabia. It was tribal law and traditions that prevented the disbelievers, by God's leave, from killing Muhammad. Similarly, it was God's will to move his messenger of the covenant from the Middle East, where he would have been killed, to the USA, to the United States of America, where God's message can flourish and reach every corner of the globe. Remember, reach every corner of the globe. This is mathematically confirmed. The surah and verse numbers 8 plus 30 equals 19 times 2. So, as we all know, the messenger of the covenant was martyred in the mosque 1989, I think. But he predicted his martyrdom, that it was gonna happen. He was predicting it, and it's right here in front of us. Right? And remember, he says it is his mission. It was God's will to move his messenger of the covenant from the Middle East to the United States, where God's message can flourish and reach every corner of the globe. And then in the conference of 1988, Rashad Khalifa, the messenger of the covenant, confirms that his mission is done. He was completed. When I don't know the name of the Japanese guy, but the Japanese guy moved back to Tokyo, to Japan, and that was the last frontier, the last corner of the world where the message had to reach. And after that, it was completed. His mission was completed. And then, by God's mercy, he lived another year, or he stayed another year and taught us many things, continued with the revelations or whatever. A full year. What? So yeah. So he already knew.
I cannot hear Salãmun. No
we
sound.
can hear now.
Oh, now, yes.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything? Okay, we can wait. So I think that's very interesting. And if we, if we go and check out the dates, it says 19 years after they caught the criminal who did it. So it's all according to God's plan, everything. But it had to happen because it also exposed people. So So yeah, what I want to say is, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna finish. If you're cutting down a tree and it falls to the left, and that will make you a disbeliever, then you better believe that the tree will fall to the left to expose you. I hope that makes sense, understood what I'm trying to say there. So yeah, I'm gonna end it there.
You can finish till the next subtitle, I think.
Okay, I'm continuing. So I'm going back to 30 to read through it completely. God protects his messenger. The disbelievers plot and scheme to neutralize you, or kill you, or banish you. However, they plot and scheme, but so does God. God is the best schemer. When our revelations are recited to them, they say, "We have heard. If we wanted to, we could have said the same things. These are no more than tales from the past." They also said, "Our God, if this is really the truth from you, then shower us with rocks from the sky or pour upon us a painful punishment." Okay, that's a weird thing to say. However, God is not to punish them while they are while you are in their midst. God does not punish them while they are seeking forgiveness. Have they not deserved God's retribution by repelling others from the sacred masjid, even though they are not the custodians thereof? Thereof are the righteous, but most of them do not know. Whoa, I have read this like 100 times, but this. And that's, I'm done. I hope I was clear.
Thank you, Muhammad. Masha Allah.
Masha Allah, you're clear.
Yeah, you're clear.
Okay,
Praise God. Thank you.
Masha Allah, thank you.
I'd like somebody to find a meme for that pretending to tremble look.
Yeah. I mean, I've met so many people like that. It's interesting.
You know, I have to touch on two things, if I may.
Sure.
I briefly spoke with Solomon about it. Two things on that you brought up today, as it was talked about previously. It's one is the circumcision. As I have touched on it, I am in the medical field. You know, for the health reason, you know, and for years and decades, and I mean hundreds of years, it's been a tradition in Islam. And not only that, but, you know, some other religions practice it too. And the reason behind it, they have done many studies as to the infection that is caused on the non-circumcised, both as a urinary tract infection, and also during, you know, as they get older, during their marital relationships and all of that, because it doesn't get clean and it causes a lot of, you know, issues and diseases. So, you know, I mean, there is it's a personal and also a religious belief. For ever and ever, they've done it in Islam, and I don't believe that it should be done, you know, at older age. That's why traditionally they do it at birth, because there is no pain. I mean, Solomon showed me a video, and that was just taken way overboard with, you know, just how extreme it was. But basically, it's a very, you know, it's not like it causes that drastic pain, and it's not humane and all of that.
Yeah, but the
it's
issue
again, it's a
is
different. Yeah.
The issue is making it a religious practice. Otherwise, we can invent practices endlessly.
But see, religion
right? Okay,
has
it's
been
good to
modified.
eat the food pyramid. Let's follow the food pyramid. This is a new religious practice. The food pyramid is great, but it's not a religious practice.
What a food pyramid? What is it?
The food pyramid or circle, food circle.
What?
Oh, the food circle?
Yeah, you need a bit of starch, some protein, and whatever on your plate.
Yeah. No,
yeah, that's great.
Again,
that's a good thing, but it's not a religious practice. It's
no,
the same with circumcision. We can't make it a religious practice. That's the issue.
But see, again, it's a belief. There are amongst Muslims, there are so many different, just like it is in Christianity, just like it is in Judaism, there are different tribes, different groups, different beliefs, and if we just want to pinpoint it and modify that from what it was originally and say, no, now it's not, what it was, it's not. See, I don't follow that. I follow my heart, and I follow with advancement of technology and science, and I follow what is good for us, as well as our food. See, you, maybe protein will feed you, will suit you well. For some people, they are, sensitive to it. They cannot tolerate starch or carbs, so it's not just something dictated to say, okay, we all got to do this because it's religiously dictated, or we want it to be dictated.
Can I be after this? Can I make
Please?
But it's the same thing with circumcision.
Yeah.
But see, that
Ahmed,
again, it's...
Ahmed, would you like to be a moderator and just maybe take names or something?
Yes.
I'm just gonna comment.
We're gonna have the person who conducts, inshallah, the study also be a moderator to take names, like who's next, who's not. Pen and paper.
And then put me after Nudot Gabaling.
I have to be in there too.
I know, it's a good discussion. See, because it's
yeah, mashallah.
Take it easy.
Okay.
Anyways,
once
we
Megan?
can forget.
Sure.
Nudrat is after. I'm just gonna comment quickly. We can forget the religious one, and we look at it from a justice view, from a point of view from justice and what is right. Is it right to cut the baby's penis or foreskin without their approval?
But it's not. See, if you really, it's not cutting penis. It's a very fine at birth.
Megan, let him, please.
Okay, please go
finish
ahead. Sure.
Finish the point.
It doesn't matter.
Let's go by the list. Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because you still. The child doesn't have the voice or the right to tell you no. So you are technically forcing your opinion on the child to cut the penis. It's for a good cause. We can't escape that. You can't escape that fact that you are forcing what you believe in on the child, and the child doesn't have the right. And there are rights activists, a lot of organizations that are against circumcision, and many of them are atheists. So there are Jews even. I mean, all kinds of people who are against it, because a lot of men have had their foreskin cut without their permission, and they have even gone so far as to sue their parents. And it did go through the court system. It went through, and the parents were sued, had to pay or compensate for removing the foreskin on their son. So from a straightforward justice point of view, it is wrong, because you're putting you're forcing something on someone who can't defend themselves. And this medical talk about oh, it's good and whatever. That's the human being trying to reason, justify their actions or beliefs.
Okay.
So
There are so many. This is a
Okay, I
depth. See,
think
I'm not
Nudrat's
saying that it's
next.
right or wrong.
So
It's
Nudrat's next.
not next.
Thank you.
Megan, we can put you. You can put
Yeah,
Megan back on the list.
inshallah, back on the list after Jeff.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
couple of things, Megan. First of all, God's ultimate, God has superseded Quran over previous scriptures. The final message to humanity, when God says it's a complete and fully detailed book, this book does not mention anything about circumcision. Now, this group is following Quran alone and God alone, and we believe that a messenger also came, a messenger of the covenant who is prophesied in the Quran and Bible, that everything traditional Islam or Muslims were doing, or so-called, he has called it wrong. Whatever is not in Quran does not exist. First of all, we have a proof that it does not exist in Quran, and Quran contains our all religious practices, and that can be found. I wonder if Solomon has given you a copy of this translation. Solomon, have you?
yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
Masha Allah.
yeah.
So if you read Appendix 6, I mean, there are many other verses, but Appendix 18 contains everything we need to know about our practices, right? And then there is an Appendix 15. So we're gonna have to really remove the baggage. I know I grew up in a traditional Muslim family, most of us. Solomon did. And we believed in a certain way at that time, hadith and sunnah and whatnot. So this hadith of Prophet Abraham does not resonate with Quran, right? So, and then it goes against many of God's laws. For example, God says there is no compulsion in religion. This is a compulsory act before a child understands even who God is, right? Performed by parents in the name of God. Anybody can do whatever they want to do with their child. I mean, if they want to be taken a right of a child to decide for themselves when they grow up whether they want this part of their body, which is unrecoverable, forever gone, that's fine. That's on them. But people should not call it something from God.
Exactly. It's not. See,
But it's huge.
that's where
It's
my
huge.
problem
God
is.
says it's an evil act who is more evil than who attribute lies to God and says this is from God. See, this is
No,
a huge problem, just like
exactly.
many other things. Yeah.
I believe it. This is what I'm saying. It shouldn't be everything. It should not be because God
Megan,
wants it or God prohibits it.
can you wait
1
for your
minute.
turn, please? Sorry.
Okay.
Let's just go by turn. And I'm on the list. Jeff is on the list, and then it's your turn after.
Nudrat, are you done with your point?
Yeah, I'm done for now.
Okay,
Yeah,
Solomon,
inshallah.
go.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just go by the list, God willing, because I know a lot of people are very passionate about this, and I can assure you that there's a lot of missing pieces with where you're coming from, and you're looking at it from a scientific standpoint with the known scientific research of this time, but we know that the Quran is timeless and it contains information that people are probably not even gonna know in the next 100 years, perhaps. Because we know that our knowledge of science is limited, and it keeps evolving. First of all, I mean, there's so many aspects of it, but to try to summarize, in addition to mashallah what Ahmed said and what Nudrat said, first of all, this is not your body to do what you want. It's different if you decide that something's good for you and bad for you, and you go do whatever you want, But let's say a woman has breast cancer and she has to remove her breast. That's fine, but it doesn't give the right to a mother to remove the breast of the baby, fearing that she might get breast cancer when she grows up. And so by removing her breast now, I'm eliminating the possibility of her ever getting breast cancer. Yet we see women are actually doing that when they're older, and that's perfectly ethically for them. I mean, it's not a violation of anybody's rights and properties, but you're talking about someone else's body, which you have no right over whatsoever. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it was Nuzat mentioned is that we believe from that as far as our religious rights are concerned, Quran is everything we need. So everything we need to follow is in the Quran. And so if you attribute anything to God that's a lie and an innovation, then you're held accountable for it. We have no Quranic evidence to support circumcision as a practice of Abraham. And when we talk about scientific evidence, I think we keep iterating the fact that we have scientific, mathematical, physical, tangible evidence. I think someone's on not on mute, so I can hear typing. But we have scientific, physical, tangible evidence that everything that we know here is from God. So all this includes religious practices. So God's messenger of the covenant came with the mathematical proof from the Quran, and that mathematical proof, if you look inside of Appendix 1, it talks about all the religious practices. They're all mentioned in the Quran, and they're all mathematically composed, and they all add up to be multiples of 19. Now, if you add other practices into it, obviously that mathematical composition is destroyed. So you know from the get-go that these practices don't belong in there. We're talking about the practices specifically that were given to Abraham. Now, tomorrow, if scientists come up with an idea that, hey, let's do this, maybe they say like wine is good for you or something. Yeah, scientifically, there is things in the wine, for example, that could be good for your body. So based on that research, you can start telling people to drink wine. But I mean, we're talking about religion here. This has nothing got to do with that, first of all. So when we're talking about circumcision, we're talking about our religious practices. We're not talking about today's society and our research of this time. If you look at the scientific history, I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to know how the science has evolved, and things that the doctors recommend to you today, first of all, they go obsolete at a certain time. I mean, practices that they used to do like 20 years ago, they're illegal now. Medicines they used to prescribe to you, or procedures they used to do, I mean, people get killed because of that, and they realize after more research as time goes by that, yeah, they were wrong about it. Now, as far as our religious context goes, we know that God creates everyone in the best design. He's the best designer, right? So everything that God has created in your body, it's not for no reason. Like you have your outer ears, for example, you have your eyelids. They have a specific purpose. There's things in our body that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people didn't understand what they were, what their function was. Looking at the brain, people still don't understand how the brain works. I'm talking about neurologists and psychologists and therapists. They still don't understand the human brain alone, right? It's so complicated, and they still don't have enough data and enough information to make absolute decisions about like what's good and what's not and what's useless in your body. Like there's things in your body that you can live without. There's things in your body that you don't live without. But everything that God has created has a specific purpose. And if you do take the time to
You stop.
tell you specifically that of a man, you'll know that it's not just a lump of skin as people it out to be. It's a design that God has created. God is a perfect designer. If the
You are stuttering, Suleiman.
foreskin was terrible and dirty and bad and everything, God could create a about.
Are you there, Salãmun? Okay, should we go with Jeff?
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Go. 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay. Well, my response is I see
Do it.
we have can you hear me? Salāmun Alaykum.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so we have two questions. It's what are our religious practices? The other question, is circumcision good? And the only way, this discussion is just through persuasion, and we can bring up evidence and suggest evidence to you, but ultimately it's up to you to have the understanding that you want to have. Now, with our religious practices, we have multitude of places that the Quran specifically says it's the fasting, Hajj, Salat, and charity, Zakat, and so that is without question what our practices are. And nobody, and everyone here I think agrees on that. So now the second question is about, is circumcision good? And what that gets at is, did God create the human body perfect? Is his design perfect? And if you now, I'm going to go with this mathematical proof of the Quran. What did it provide us? What it provided us with is confidence in the vast superiority as ultimate truth. We look at the Quran and we have an authorized English translation that has clarified it to such precision and clarity for us that we have trust beyond what we've ever been able to trust. We can trust it beyond scientific understandings currently. Now, so the question, is circumcision good? Well, if it's not good, does that mean that God didn't create his design perfectly? That's a good question. Well, what does the Quran say about his creation? And 64:3 says he created the heavens and the earth for a specific purpose, designed you and perfected your design. Then to him is the final destiny. And then 82:7, the one who created you, designed you, and perfected you. So it's like we have a problem here. We have a medical profession that is saying, this is good for you, whereas you're having God say that no, your design is perfect. So the question is, has Hashem ever been in the dark about something? Do they understand the body fully? And I think the answer to that is no. We're still learning about the body. Like they don't even understand dreams. The foreskin they cut off, they don't even realize how many nerve endings that they're throwing away. You're with a group of people who have looked into this much more deeply than the medical association is presenting. See, there's another question. Does the medical profession have a vested interest in maintaining circumcision? There are alliances and forces that are trying to maintain this, and they have been moving the goalpost forever. In the United States, it started out in the 1800s as a prevention of masturbation. Then later on, they're looking for better justification. It's turned on sin. And then it went on down the line, and they've been moving the goalpost. Currently, the goalpost is at AIDS, and they keep providing justification for it. And that there's so much more medical information outside what the medical profession is advocating, because it is slow. It's a slow body that is not really taking in all of the evidence, and so this is important to look at. And also, I'll just leave it at that. Looks like Solomon wants to get back here.
It's okay.
He's not allowed to.
It's okay. I can go after Megan, I suppose, if nobody else is on the list after.
It's Megan's turn.
Okay, I just think it's at a personal level, and I don't honestly think that it should be dictated universally, or religion. It's just something that people, it's like, yeah, first of all, somebody's born without limb, without, so all the creations of our body is not imperfection. A baby at birth, they have to transplant a new heart, or take out something because of some defect, or some also, our tonsils, people at older age, they have to remove. So there are parts of our bodies that are being totally modified. And that, because again, I know from my own experience, because at birth, my son, I was with him, they did circumcision at the hospital here in LA. And it was just not even a minute, and he didn't even cry. He cried at birth, but on that he just went, and that was it. It's not like, because if I knew that I'm putting my son in pain, and because I watched videos before it and all of that, I didn't do it because of religious practice at all. I believe in universal religion. I didn't say, oh, because I'm a Muslim, I should do or should do not. I did it because of just historically, my family had done it to my brother, and I knew that it was something, that he wouldn't have all these UTI infections, or at older age when he has intercourse, he won't have these infections. So I did it for his well-being. I did not follow because God said yes or God said no. I did it because of my knowledge. I don't follow blindly. And there are so many things that I just go and study. When Solomon told me about, I had no idea about submission. I had no idea who was Rashid Khalifa. And, I just, I've been so busy because I was in Iran because my father was sick. He passed. So when I came back just last week, I Googled him. I Googled Rashid Khalifa. And to my surprise, there are horrible things about his accusation and what he did at his younger age. If you guys Google, it's talking about, his very, very good friend and colleague. He just says it. He says, you guys just put criticism of Rashid Khalifa. He says, yeah, it says,
Sorry,
it's amazing.
why are we criticizing him?
I'm not criticizing him. I just wanted to see where all this, everything that you guys, please do not hold it against me. I study everything. If you tell me Apple, I Google it. If you tell me, and I read, I don't, I just go and, educate myself on every subject. Doesn't matter what it is.
I just wanted to, it's fine. I just want to know why we were getting into it, but
because I'm just saying that this whole thing goes behind the alteration of Quran, and for him to reach these numerical calculations, he altered it, he modified, he took out some things and from Quran, and which is a no. If we are true Muslims, we cannot touch Quran, we cannot modify.
You're talking about the two verses.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And just for him to reach it. And then if you read, please read. We are not going to fool ourselves, as to everything that, if you tell me, like, I just tell everyone, okay, now I'm the messenger of God. Let's say Einstein, let's say Socrates, let's say all these math genius, who came up with these ideas or whatever. I'm just saying, touching something that has been, solid and true, and modifying it, and then now coming to these new things and changing, or whatever.
You should study that issue, because you will then see that those two verses that were removed, they were actually suspected for many, like 1,000 years at least, because they didn't have two witnesses.
We as human beings coming and altering and modifying a religious book, doesn't matter if it's Torah or Bible or Quran, and becoming out as something, it's, how do we validate that? And then please,
if you study the mathematical miracle, you will see the validation.
Yeah, because that was altered. If you please read please go. I mean, I just don't want to read the whole thing because, it talks about the allegations of raping a minor of him when he was at age 43. He was at the court in Tucson, Arizona, for standing charge of sexual assault when he was married to kids.
It's casual.
So it's not.
Like,
what are you talking about? It's
yes,
casual.
people lie a lot.
It's not. This is a court case.
Yeah,
This,
and he was
see-
freed. He was
No,
pleaded
it's-
not guilty.
Can we stick to the topic because we can
Okay.
discuss
Yeah,
this
okay.
issue after?
Okay.
That's
so-
a very big,
okay.
large issue, whether Rashad Khalifa is a messenger or not. What are the charges? Let's stick to one point at a time. Otherwise, we'll be lost here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, as to the circumcision.
Wait, let her finish. Let her finish.
Okay, for the circumcision standpoint of view, I think it's something, again, as I mentioned, it should not
Like a
be
personal.
condemned or bravo or yes, do it or yes, not to do it. I think, with having, we should let people make an educated guess and wise choice. It's a practice that people will do. It doesn't make you a good person, a good religious person, a God-fearing or not. It's not. It's nothing that should say, oh, if you do that, then you're going to go to hell. The same thing, and my next subject is homosexuality. It's not by choice. The homosexuality is not. But see,
It
these
is
two
by
things
choice.
no, it's not.
You know-
No.
You said you're a
You
scientist,
know what?
so you should know
It's
this.
not. Yes, I am. Let me tell you why. Okay.
We are way
But
off topic.
We're
Okay,
excision.
but
Well,
these two
I think
subjects have been booed because ever since I've been listening to these, studies, these two subjects have been booed constantly. Homosexuality is not by choice. There are many. It's a package.
It is a
It's
choice.
well, what
either
do you think about
no.
what God
It's
says in the
not.
Quran?
Let me see.
We
It's
read
not.
in the
See,
Quran.
this is okay. See,
Megan,
okay.
are you here to learn the
I try
Quran
to.
or you want to practice the universal? You have to make up your mind first on that issue. Because if we follow Quran, we cannot have our opinion over and above God.
You just said that we can't change the Quran, but you're changing
Yeah,
Quran
you're
by
changing the
saying
Quran.
it
You're
is
going
natural.
above God.
I'm not changing.
Do you
it,
know more
Well,
than
but,
God?
no, because
okay.
no, hold on, because you're saying homosexuality is constantly being booed, right?
Yeah.
And we're just reading what God is saying in the Quran, because He's saying
Okay.
you practice such an abomination.
Abomination.
These are literally verse. I'm not quoting it from myself. This is a verse in the Quran.
Yeah.
It says
Right.
you practice such an abomination that no one has ever done it. You practice sex with the men while forsaking your women. So this is not us saying that, it's God saying that. So I think at
Right.
some point we have to conclude whether we want to follow what God said in the Quran, because the definition of a submitter is that they will not find anything objectionable in the Quran. So when God says something, then it's really a test for me to say, okay, whether I'm going to take the time to accept or research what God is saying, or I'm going to continue to, follow what I think is the right thing.
Okay.
And I
Well,
think that become. So I mean, like, I think you're kind of going borderline on circumcision, where you're saying that, okay, well, it's not in the Quran, so maybe it's up to you and thing. But when you talk about homosexuality, I'm sorry, but God is saying specifically that homosexuality is an abomination of the devil. And so if you say that, no, these people can't help themselves and this and that, I mean, there's scientific evidence on both sides of homosexuality, first of all. So you can't be a scientist and disregard the other side. I mean, there have been studies done on specifically on human genes to prove that your genetics have nothing to do with your choice to live your life. Now, if somebody goes through sexual abuse and all that stuff, they still have the choice to not become a person. God has given us the instinct of what's right and what's wrong and what's evil and what's not, and it's up to us. Like we get people. We are all genetically, like you can say, we're all prone to having sex. Let's say heterosexual people. Like I have sexual tendencies to go and have sex with a woman, and that's natural. God has designed a man and He designed a woman. But now I still have God telling me that I can't do it with every woman, right? And so there I have a choice. Even though I'm genetically programmed to be attracted to women, I still have to make a conscious choice. I'm just saying, for the sake of argument, that even if you say that, you still have no right to practice homosexuality or think homosexual thoughts. And so, at whatever the reason is, I mean, we can still make the conscious decision to prevent ourselves from falling into sin. And if you are a believer, God can help you. If you have psychological traumas or issues like that, you know, God can fix all of those. Nothing's impossible for God. But
Yeah,
the thing is,
may I?
we cannot say that because of my knowledge about science, then I'm gonna go against what God is saying in the Quran. You know, we're not here to talk about our personal opinion. We're here to study the Quran. So if the Quran is saying that, then we're just discussing it. We're not booing it. I mean, God is basically booing it. You know, that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah.
At
May
the
I?
end of, yeah, go ahead. Just wanted to say just one line. At the end of the day, there is a free will. So, Megan, no matter what Quran says, Bible says, or anything else says, people have the free choice to do whatever they want to. Go ahead, Jeff, please.
Yeah. Hi, Megan. I just wanted to let you know that this group of people here, we've been down a lot of those roads. I come from the scientific or the secular understanding. That's what I grew up with. I know that's exactly what I left. How did I leave it? I left it by the proof and the Quranic evidence. And I find it much stronger than what our scientific information has. I have it much stronger than what our secular understandings. This is a group of people that have seen all of these at discrediting Rashad Khalifa. We're well aware of all those studies. We've studied these things. It's not a group of people who are ignorant out there and the attempts of people. You've stumbled upon a group that has fought through these things for years and have seen many of these attempts. And so first, I just want you to know that I think you're underestimating the audience here. The audience that you have here has been on that for. This has been a conscious effort to choose the Quran as our path. And we have been making efforts to disassemble what has felt natural to us from a secular understanding, from a cultural understanding, from our previous ideas of what we thought the Quran said. This mathematical proof has shattered the whole foundation by which we have based our lives upon. With this, it's beyond human possibility for this Quran to have been done by a human. It's beyond human possibility. Then you can trust every single word. And that is what's being demanded upon us with this Quran. It is the final scripture. And yes, universalist is good in the sense that we believe that it's always been God giving message, but this is the final message. And it is clarifying these issues for us. And we are ignorant people here in this group. We're quite sophisticated about these issues, even the ones that you may be seeing people trying to trip you on your path. And Satan is allowed to do this. It says it in the Quran that there's going to be all to give you that, and it's perfectly okay. You're just supposed to work on it. That's pretty much what I had to say.
Yeah, I'd like to interject something here. Megan, I'm closer to you than I am to other members of the group because I'm very new. I'm not new to the Quran, but I am new to the submitter point of view. So I understand exactly when you're speaking, exactly where you're coming from. I wanted to say that as far as, because you had brought up the homosexuality thing, that was something that, what I really understood about it, whether it was, to me at this point, it really doesn't matter genetic or not, because if we all have our own tests, this could be a test human being while they're here on earth. And what I noticed in the Quran is that God is always saying, if you approach, he's not saying if you have those feelings. He's saying if you do something about them. That seems to be the issue, and that would be, again, that would be that person's test with God, and whatever they pray to God for. And as far as the what you read about Rashad, I remember, when I read that, I was just like, oh, well, that's it for me, when I read all this stuff. And, Jeff had told me something a couple of years ago, or a year ago, that really put it into perspective for me. And it was this, one of the things I always disliked about listening to or reading about the prophets from like the Bible and things is the way they tended to degrade them, to bring them down to a level that they didn't deserve. In other words, when they speak of Lot and they said, well, he had incest with his daughters. When they spoke of David, where they said, well, he sent this guy, he saw this woman, she was beautiful, he wanted her, so he sent her husband on the front line so he could die. And I resented that. And I always thought, no, because usually when God picks his prophets and messengers, he picks the best of the bunch. And so, and I understood them trying to do that. And so when I was confronting and discussing that with Jeff, he had reminded me of how I felt when I would read that with David, and it helped me to put it aside and recognize that, I'm going to keep that out as if it never happened, and look at just what is real and what is possible, what I can see. And I know that the Code 19 is real. So God had him reveal that, and there's a reason for that, which tells me that I need to go down that vein rather than what is out there. Because you're going to get a lot of stuff out there, especially if they hit everything. It's not to say that he wasn't accused, but it doesn't mean that it's true. And so I understand, I hear you, and I understand what you're saying. You're the universal. I understand that. And I said this last time, but you had left before you could hear it, because I had said, I understand what you're saying. I just think the vocabulary isn't really clear yet, because when you say universal, you're talking, for what I'm understanding, you're talking about the creed. The creed that God gave Abraham was monotheism, and it was that we don't have partners with God. And the religion of God has been one and the same since time began: submission to him. And so when I hear you say universal, I understand what you're saying, and I will tell you this: you take your time, you do your research, you think. It doesn't matter what anybody else says, because it really does have to come from you. I've had people in my life who have been doing this for like 5 years and things, and no matter how much they would tell me, it's not, if I'm resisting it, or if I was like you, yeah, but this and this and this, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to stop everything, going to just read the Quran, and I'm going to have to think for myself. And that's the best, and it sounds like that's pretty much what you're doing. I would tell you, though, stay away from, because I got to tell you this, because when I read all this stuff about Rashad, that he took the 2 verses out, the number 19, oh my God, he was in court. I was just like, I thought everybody was nuts to, and you're following this person. But when I pushed all of that aside and I actually looked at the evidence and went to God, because the only teacher is God. It's not going to be coming from people. That has to be between you. Eventually, slowly, you start becoming open. You start to understand a little bit better. So just take your time. You're going distance here. Whenever you say anything, you're going to get a
Ahmed,
lot
can
of
you put me
pushback.
on the list, please? Sorry.
Me too.
Yeah, you're,
Okay,
so
Daniel, are you
I would
done?
just say you take your time.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Megan, do you want to say something? 1 minute?
Yes, as I said again, because maybe I'm new to this, but all my life I have followed do good and you get rewarded, do bad and you get punished, because I have experienced it. And so and with people, I give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't follow an ayatollah or a priest just because of their reputation, because there are so many of them that they do so much wrong. And at the same time, I don't condemn a homosexual. It's funny, I'm going to talk something that hit very close to me. My oldest niece, she's now 31. From when she was young, my sister-in-law, who's American, and the whole family is a devoted Christian, and so is my niece. She would refuse to wear dresses. She is in the closet. She is an obvious lesbian, but she's not in any relationship. Her demeanor, the way she dresses, the way she does her haircut, but she's the sweetest, most God-fearing, kindest, righteous person on the face of the earth. I look at her and I see
How's
how
she
she
God
is,
fearing?
because she's a very devoted Christian, and she's Jesus, Jesus,
1 minute.
Jesus. And she has, and her belief is just, she doesn't do anything wrong. If you call her at 2 a.m., say, hey, I have a flat tire, she'll come. If her friends say I need something, she'll go out of her way to help. So what I'm saying is this: I just look at people by their action. I look at people how they are. I don't say that, oh,
Okay.
you're this, and boo, 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 you're just gonna go to hell. I let people to prove themselves right or wrong. Doesn't matter if they're a messenger, if they're a child, if they are a scientist, if they're a scholar, if they are,
You're
a homeless. So live and let live is my motto, and I follow the righteousness. And the reason I say I believe above all this on God, because I get some peace of heart. I am at
but
peace
yeah,
with my own
I'm gonna
God.
stop you. 1 minute
Yeah.
is past, so but all that is very undefined. Everyone, you see that the hippies, they all like, oh, let's sit. There's no definition. There is no what is righteous, what is right, what is wrong. There's no definition, and that's a problem. You have to.
But it's not a problem. See,
It
shouldn't
is
be
a problem
dictated.
because it is
You know what I feel
opinionated.
like it is? It's like I feel like this. I feel like I'm a fly in a room
Oh,
and I'm being
can
chased
we
with a
not go back and
SWAT.
forth?
It
Okay.
is.
1 minute
No,
over.
It is.
Can we not go?
that's what I feel like.
Yeah, because you can have a thief who does good things on the side. He's still a thief. Anyway, Solomon's turn.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
Are you going by the list?
I don't know. Was Nudrat first?
Um.
Yeah, my turn.
Nudrat.
I thought.
I'm
Okay.
anti-feminist.
Yes, I am a feminist. I was a feminist, way more radical than what I am now. But now, feminism has nothing to do with homosexuality, by the way. Here,
Go ahead.
I'm a humanist too.
Yeah.
And Alhamdulillah, I'm a proactive person in many other things. But here's the thing. I also, like Jeff has described, this bunch of people been there, done a lot of that, and now we have, with our free will, come to the conclusion that God has showed us this book, and nobody forced us to become that. Nobody forced us to believe in it. My parents were born in different traditional Muslims. I denounced religion at one point, thought there was too much hocus pocus in it. Alhamdulillah, many years ago, I saw this translation, and first time I believed in God. First time. Before that, I had questions, like hereafter, God, I don't know, whatever. So I never had, things were always black and white for me. God is or God is not. When I believed first time there is God, then I realized also this is His book, His words. Who am I? He's the creator of the 7 universes. He says be and it is. Okay. Who, how intelligent am I compared to this entity who creates, not only creates, but initiates from nothing? Okay. First of all, like Brother Ahmed was saying while he was reading, that to know or believe in God is to know his qualities and believe in them, right? And I had the shivers. I 6 months when I became a submitter, all I did was cry. You know, I also used, I chose to drink at that time before becoming a submitter, or smoke, you know, try other substances and whatnot, you know, lived a life what I thought, and I was doing good, trust me, helping a lot of people. I was always in, you know, helping the less, you know, fortunate ones, whatever. But God says all your works will be nullified. We are here for a test, a specific test, and that you, I'm not going to go into detail because you can read it in the introduction, inshallah.
Mhm.
Now about this, every Surah 12 is about, you know, Prophet Joseph, right, Sister Megan?
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you read the, actually this is the only story in Quran, or the chapter in Quran, which is like the whole chapter is just one story, and very close to the one in Bible as well, the closest one probably from the
Mhm.
Quran. And we know that Prophet Joseph was innocent of the crime he was labeled for, and he was put to the jail for several years,
Mhm.
innocent, and he was a prophet of God. So there are,
Mhm.
there, God says in 12:23, God protects the believers from sin. So, and also Satan is allowed to inflict according to the weaknesses of people.
Mhm.
And at the end, god God saved him from committing the sin, but he still went to the jail innocently, you know, and later on he was proven innocent, and then the same king gave him a prominent position. Now
Mhm.
anything about, and this is for every, you know, people talk about Prophet Muhammad, oh, he, you know, married like girl who was 80 years old, some go to
Right.
6 years old, and he had like a millions of wives and whatnot. So that is
Mhm.
character assassination on a sexual level,
Mhm.
you know. So that's historic. It's gonna, Satan comes to interfere in the work of God no matter what. So that's what I have to say for now. Don't want to be taking other people's time.
Okay. Can I go now?
Okay, Solomon,
Inshallah.
go.
Okay. So hopefully my reception will work with me, God willing. So I want to read one verse, Surah 22, verse 52. It says the system. It says, "We did not send before you any messenger nor a prophet without having the devil interfere in his wishes. God then nullifies what the devil has done. God perfects his revelations. God is omniscient, most wise." And Masha Allah, I'd like to read the footnote that is explaining that. And it says, "Throughout this worldly test, Satan's allowed to present his point of view. We are born with a representative of Satan in our bodies. This allows the people to make a choice between God's evidence and Satan's evidence. Satan's evidence is invariably based on lies. This system explains the fact that the devil's agents continuously come up with the most absurd lies, insults, and accusations against every messenger." And then it references the verses that you can look at. So the point here is that, yeah, when you Google on the internet, there's all kinds of people, traditionalists who were trying to stop this message from spreading because it exposes their satanic ideologies. So they came up with all sorts of lies against them, right? But the thing is, how are you and I supposed to respond in accordance with when we hear rumors or accusations? You have to have evidence. And for something like this, you know, like these types of things that you're hearing online, you have to have witnesses and evidence, and we have none of that. It's more like, oh, he said this and she said this, and you know, such and such testified in court. And now if we're gonna go ahead and believe that, then yeah, the devil has done his job, because we deserve to believe it, because we haven't done our part in examining the evidence and to make up our mind based on that. Now, but what evidence do we have really that we can go with? And as I mentioned earlier, we have the scientific mathematical evidence. And so I'm not sure if you've already done so, but I would highly recommend you being a scientist or
We lost them.
You stopped. Can you repeat 20 seconds?
very, very intricate and very elaborate that you can read and decide whether it's from God or not. Then when you come to that conclusion, then I think a lot of things will get a lot simpler for you, because you know, it's have many different
He's
questions,
basically
right?
saying be a scientist and, you know, go through detail by detail, but really thorough.
What
Mathematical
did
evidence.
say? You lost them.
I'm talking about the mathematical miracle of the Quran.
Yeah.
I'm saying look at
go
the
through it.
mathematical evidence provided by the messenger of the covenant. If you want to know if he's really a messenger or not, you have to look at the mathematical evidence. Being a person of reason, study the Quran's mathematical miracle, find out if it's truth or not, basically.
Yeah,
And then that would be a good
Something
starting
I have-
point.
Yeah. I will do it. Yeah, I need to, you know, read through.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
It takes time, so.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. You guys are old timers and you've been into this, you know, so I'm sure you have a
Are you
totally
calling me
different
old?
old timers. No, old
Kidding.
timers on this. Yeah, right. No, you still are. I think you're spring chicken. Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, you know, again, mostly what I've been doing is, you know, just Googling, you know, just getting some information about this whole, but I haven't read that detail of the mathematical, you know, configuration on Quran yet. But that's something definitely worthy to look at. Maybe that will give me a different insight. But and
Yeah.
again,
I think it's very premature to, you know, before, I would say reserve your judgment on all of these things before you.
Well, the first thing I did, I Googled about Rashad Khalifa just to see about his persona, about who he was, you know, who, where, and how, and all of that. And of course, with everything comes pros and cons. So, you know, if you give me a book that is written by you, I'm not going to start by reading the book. I'm going to read about you first. That's what I did. And again, as a newcomer,
But that's not what you should do, because you should, if someone's being accused of, you have to judge them out, right? I mean,
we have the videos as well.
If I come and talk to you, and are you going to listen to me first? Or are you going to go up to the people first and find out who they think I am before you make a judgment about me? You have to see for yourself. You're not going to go by what others are saying about me. You're going to, have firsthand experience with me to make a decision whether they're right or not.
But
right?
I need to get, no, I won't make a decision based on just what you tell me, you know, and
no, not what I tell
I'm just
you.
gonna, you know, or whoever. I mean, words can come out of mouth of anyone, but I think
evidence.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. That altogether, I think the general knowledge, the general, you know, educating yourself or oneself, just to read more and not to look at one thing one-sided. I think there's two sides to everything, and I come from a very disciplined, strong army background, and so I'm very, I don't know, I'm not your typical gal out there. I have been raised in a my father, as you know, he was a general, 5-star general in the army. So I've been through different dictations, different paths, different bringing up, and I have built, because I was given a lot of responsibility from my childhood. I have a very strong personality, but and I look at all aspects. I don't just I'm not a follower by any means. I am not. I need to digest the whole thing myself. And I do, I don't just say, oh, because such and such or what and what says so, I am going to do so. And
Exactly.
again,
That's why I'm thinking that Google's not going to be your guide. I mean, you have,
no,
inshallah, you're gonna have time, and you have time, God willing, and so you're gonna examine all the evidence, and based on
inshallah,
that, you're gonna
yes,
formulate a decision, right? So,
So
yeah,
exactly.
but yeah,
may I say one thing?
yeah.
May I say one thing?
Yes.
Please.
God willing, Megan, God is the one who guides, and he knows the pace that you're going to go, and he, it's ultimately between you and God. I just want to say, just as a disclaimer, that this group, this is people who have waded through a lot of garbage out there. If you said, right, but in this case, there's about 1 million sides, because there's all kinds of angles that people are trying to distract from the Quran and the message that the messenger
You're
came
stuttering.
and gave us.
Yeah.
Oh, we believe that a messenger came and gave us a more clarified understanding of the Quran. I mean, it's literally gave us a translation which we can trust. So that's this group. I'm just saying this group of people have fought through all of that. And you may say to yourself, well, gee, I don't really agree with this group.
Right.
And that's your prerogative, and that's fine. However, it's we have come to this conclusion after great sacrifice and great study, all of that stuff. This has been quite painful and extracting and disassembling notions that were comfortable to us. And so, so when you with this group, we for the most part are trying to present the message as it came to us. That there's a message that came to us. It's the Quran alone, and there was a lot of wisdom from the Quran that this messenger was given the ability to extract. God guided him, and
I don't think she
so
meant
I would like to finish. Understand most of the understandings that we have in this group are crafted by the understandings that came to us with this message. And so we really have been working hard to put aside the opinion that we're used to, and we're trying to present the opinion of this John and this messenger. And I, just so you know, it's like, okay, at this group, if you set aside your notions, because we all had those of us. And what you'll hear mostly on this Quran study is what the messenger was conveying. And so you may not agree with it, but at least with this group, you're going to hear pretty much what the messenger was saying about these issues. That's it.
I got you. Yeah.
And what
Okay, so who wanted to go next?
Yeah, I wanted to just say, Megan,
Yes,
I don't think that, I mean, I hear what Jeff say. I don't think that accusing everybody of being, you know,
You're
in the dark or in the closet and things like that. I just, you know, here's the thing. You take your time, you know, you take your time. Look at what Rashad did. You know, one of the best things that he did was a lot of the clarifying, you know, to say, wait a minute, you know, we don't put somebody else's name with God. We only pray, you know, we only do the four, you know, he really clarified that. And those are the things that you look at, you do your studies, you take your time. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. And it really should always be Quran, Quran, Quran. Always. You know, so just take your time with it. And here's the thing. I'm actually surprised that they allowed this conversation, because they don't usually. So
okay. Your
I
time
don't
is
know.
up.
That's not true.
No,
It's
thank
only
you.
the only people who don't
Let
allow are
me.
Now, come on. Don't jump down my
people
throat.
who
It
are
is.
hostile.
Wait. No, Rashad. I mean, Solomon, don't jump down my throat. Don't jump down
Guys,
my
I'm
But that's
just saying I
not
throat.
disagree
true
with you.
then, yes.
I'm
Don't,
just
wait
saying
a
I
minute.
disagree with you.
Listen, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. You don't jump
Okay,
down my throat. Let me say what I'm going to
20,
say.
20 seconds.
Normally, listen, don't give me a time. You know, you
I'm
don't
the
do that with
moderator.
others.
I'm just saying I
I'm
You
the
disagree.
don't do it with
moderator.
others. You don't do it with others. Don't do it with me. I'm
I'm
just
just saying
saying,
I
Megan, the
disagree with
truth
you.
of the matter is that they rarely, ever allow someone to
Yeah,
really say the things that you've said.
that's
That's the
right.
That's not
truth.
true.
Thank you.
But it
No,
is true.
That's not true.
it's
It is
okay,
true.
but you know what it is? I am vocal, and you know
Right,
what? I know I didn't mean to insult or jump on
right,
anybody, but
right,
I just said what I believe. I'm very straightforward. I just said my
right.
feeling. I didn't want to disrespect anybody's thoughts. I know you guys are in this, for I don't know how many years, but definitely you have done your, studies and your beliefs and all of that. But I just said
So,
as a newcomer of where I'm coming from,
Right,
but it's
right.
nothing. It's my personal reaction, and who I am. I am
mm,
outspoken, and I rather say things than just say, you know what, delete, exit, and done.
yeah.
I just wanted to
Yeah, Masha.
share,
Can
you
I?
know,
Can
yeah.
I? So basically, the Rashad Khalifa's translation is the only English translation that uses the Quran only. The verses are translated in context with other verses in the Quran and the understanding of the Quran, whereas
Masha.
other translations always include hadith and traditions and whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it is called the authorized English translation of the Quran. So it was authorized by God. That's why it made such a big headline in the world, because it
Mm-hmm.
was completely new. It put a new light on the Quran and made it accessible to the rest of the world. So,
Yeah, Masha Allah.
so you study his actions. Like, would a bad person dedicate his life to do, like, spend so many years of his life to, in like for God, right? You have to study, as you
Bad?
said.
No,
No,
nobody
but as you
said
said, you
bad.
have to
There's a
study all aspects.
bad is
You
down.
have to consider everything.
Yeah, but see, bad is very bad. Bad is not
Mm,
good at all. Nobody said that Rashad or anyone is a bad person or not qualified or not, but just
mm,
there is a degree. It's like you say to your that's why I always say, when you say I love you, there is a degree. There is from 0 to 100. How much
mm.
is it? 10, 20,
Yeah,
50,
but
8?
for
It's
example,
not bad.
you said, for example, that he removed verses, or
Yeah, because when I
the
read,
thing
his
about the
colleague
girl,
says it.
and the thing you
When
googled. That's all bad. So,
because
Um,
there is a good article about his colleague who said he's actually not a PhD. He said, if you read that, he's his colleague, he's his Egyptian colleague
yeah,
who
but
went
how?
to all these universities with him. But no, I'm not saying. See, this is it. I
Mm,
shouldn't have said, again, that comes from me being outspoken. I said what I read. I said what is
Okay,
out
okay.
there. I didn't create it. It's his colleague. He said, he knows him from the young age. He knows about both of their education, their levels, what they've done, their
Okay, okay.
studies and whatnot. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's something again. So because I am, I don't just I wouldn't just say, oh, Solomon told me about this, so this is
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's it. So I started, and Solomon is right. I should read all these mathematical miracles because that, again, Einstein, Socrates, they were genius too. There are people who are good, they are knowledgeable, they are a value to society and to humanity. I don't question that. I know by no
Okay.
means say
But
that
I
he
mean,
didn't, Rashad
for
didn't do
example,
anything.
if you read something about Rashad, oh, Rashad did this. Okay, but study also who is saying that Rashad did this. So
Right,
study that guy who calls himself his friend, Rashad's friend. Study
right,
him. See who
right.
is he.
I did, and
Study
again,
completely.
it's under. If you put critics, of Rashad Khalifa, it pops up right away, and it talks about that court case. It talks about his education. It
Yeah.
talks about
Study the
what he's
critics
done and
as
how.
well.
So it's
Okay.
not.
That's
I
what I'm
didn't say
saying.
Yeah.
Rashad
Let's.
lagged.
So
Mhm.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is
Anyways,
irrelevant.
yeah, it's irrelevant.
I want to
No,
interject a little bit. I'm sorry, but
but okay, Nudrat, go.
after you, Ahmed.
Okay,
After
so
you, my
I
name.
want to move away from circumcision and homosexuality and this discussion so we can move on. Anyways,
I just
okay,
wanted to say
circumcision. I
something
just
about
want to
this
add you
topic
will have
of.
to deal
Yeah, just want to add and.
you will have to deal with the fact that I'm not trying to insult or anything. You have to deal with the fact that your son might sue you in the future, right?
Yeah,
What?
that's fine. You know what?
You have to
See,
deal
this
with
is,
that fact.
yeah. Well, no, but he won't see. This is okay. What I get the feeling of this is that I know that you guys are solid and you're that. It's like, again, I feel like that fly in the room and I'm being, followed by a SWAT to just kill me. It's giving
No, no,
people
no.
the
I'm just
benefit of the doubt.
pointing out the
No,
fact.
honestly, that's what it feels like. You cannot say, oh, you're going to go to hell if you don't agree with this. No, I don't believe at all, by no means, that the non-followers of submitters are going to go to hell. I don't believe that. I believe that Jesus Christ, I believe all religions, I believe all
Mm,
people, they do good, they've done good, and they are heaven. If heaven is not just going to only allow submitters, heaven is not going to just say, oh, you
okay.
didn't do this, so you
Mm,
circumcised your son, so you are not going to go to heaven. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. If
okay,
that is
okay.
going to be the guideline for me to go to heaven, then I am not in it, because I believe
No,
there are
no,
so much
no, no,
beauty,
no. Let's.
so
We are way
goodness.
ahead of.
I'm just
Can
saying that uh, from a non-religious point of view, you still have to deal with that fact that he might sue you.
Doesn't matter. So see, so what? So this is again, that's a swat over my head. You are not going. See, I go. It's not right. The way to you shouldn't scare people for them to become believers, and
No,
that's
no,
what
I'm
I
not
Huh.
hear from
scaring.
a
I'm
lot of
pointing out
things.
a fact.
Because you say,
Yeah,
"Ooh,
you-
what is homosexuality? They're not going to go to heaven." Ooh, what is this? Ooh, it's wrong. You gotta let people to live and let live. We are all passing through. None
Mm,
of us are here to stay. None of us. We come. I believe in reincarnation. I do believe in it because I believe I have been reincarnated, and to believe
mm,
it or not, through a very, very deep psychological test,
mm. But
I've
is
been
there any
here over and
evidence?
over.
That's the issue. We
No,
follow
no, because
I
evidence.
no,
just.
let me
That's
tell
the
you what it
thing.
is.
Mhm.
No, it's no
We can
evidence,
have.
but the feeling, you know what? When I was a child, we went to a mountain climbing. I was
Mm,
only 9. I
mm,
had been there, but my father said, no, you've never been. I knew where we were going. I said,
So
Baba,
it's a deja
we are
vu,
going.
basically.
yeah,
I said, we are going. There's going to be 3 stairs. There's going to be a fence, and there's going to be a small pool.
Mm.
My father
yeah.
was shocked. I was 9. So
It's
long
a
story
deja
short,
vu. It's a
No,
personal
long,
experience,
okay,
and
okay. So you call
That.
it deja
Yeah.
vu, but I
Mhm.
believe
but
but
yeah,
I believe
that's
we come to get complete. I believe we come to become ripened, to become
mm,
selfless, to become good to others, to not
there
to
is an
judge
understanding
others.
around that actually. but we can discuss that
Yeah.
some time.
May I
So-
Can I have my
so-
name was
okay,
there.
wait.
Yeah,
Wait. Who was first?
Nudrat.
Nudrat or Jeff? Okay,
Nudrat.
go.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, Megan, we all are hearing you. Trust me, it's not that we're not hearing and respecting what your knowledge is so far, right? The thing is, it's all irrelevant, Rashad Khalifa or anything, if you don't study the Quran first. You are way ahead of everything. You have to have the desire to learn the Quran, and you have to have the desire to ask God to guide you. And
Right.
then we should continue this. Right now, you have views which are,
Yeah.
kind of secular views. And trust me, most of us had those before coming to this understanding. And that's fine. It's a journey. But if you are not going to learn Quran, what is our life all about? What God wants from us, we're not going to go anywhere. Rashad is irrelevant, allegations are irrelevant. The belief, so many messengers came, and when people were asked, what made you believers? And they said the message did. And if you're not going to believe in God's message, first of all, then you don't believe in God. You don't. I'm sorry to say. You cannot say, I believe in God and I also believe in reincarnation and I also believe in Quran. It cannot happen like that. It's very wishful thinking. You are illiberal by choice, and so were we. And we came to this conclusion on our own. If you wouldn't take care of the baggage you have from before, you're not going to be able to see Quran alone in its completeness and its entirety, and in the light of Quran, who God is and what he wants from us and why
Okay.
we are here. Those are more important questions than Rashad.
Let me
Rashad
ask
comes
you a
way
question.
after.
Can I
Right.
ask you one personal question? You said before you came to, to this group or to accept a submission. Why did you do that? I mean, where were you in your life that
Oh,
it
I
made
was
you?
in my life at a very dark place. Trust me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. See, this is what my point. Thank you. Thank you. I
I
think
have to
this
be
is the
honest.
whole. This is what this is. Thank you. That's where the difference is. I am not in a dark place.
Oh, perfect.
I see. This is what I'm saying. If we are lost, if we are in a dark place, we look to hang on to something, to be our savior or
I
to
see.
get
Oh,
something.
okay, okay.
You know,
I hear you.
so I am not in a dark place. I have learned in my life through thick and thin to be who I am today. And I'm very strong. So my father, he said when they back then, when they wanted to have a child, they would celebrate if the first child was a boy. He said, if I knew having a girl was so good like this, I would want 10 of you from God. Okay, so it's different. We all are different. We as humankind, we are not all strong. We go through different phases. Some people handle obstacles and overcome it. Some go to depression. Some go to antidepressants. Some go to drugs. Some no, pull themselves out. God has granted me through my prayers. You know what, when I lost my mom to cancer and I saw her, she was young, and I in Islam we don't do embalming, so you bury like that. She had turned black and blue. I went through a shock. Until then I would ask why. Ever since I buried my mom, I was still alive and could have my back straight and continue on. I no longer ask God why. I say, this is my prayer day and night. I say, dear God, I am no exception. No matter what you put on my path, give me the strength and patience to deal with it. And Almighty God has given me that. He has made me a better person, a stronger person. I don't judge people. I look at people, I give them the chance to prove themselves right or wrong. I try to teach my kids the best. I told them, you are no better or worse from another because of your religion, but you are better or worse because of your action. That is my religion.
We
I think it all
yeah.
is different
So
When
person
you
to person.
talk, you
can
say I. When we talk, we say God says. That's the only difference we have right now.
so I'm
Can
gonna
we?
When you say God,
interrupt.
I'm sorry, what?
Let's.
Um,
Ahmed, could you put me on the list too?
yeah, I'm gonna interrupt.
I'm done.
The thing is, without facts and evidence, the most beautiful poem means nothing. So,
I'm sorry. I think it has goes to your personal strength. I think it goes to your deep
the
root.
thing is,
It goes to your
if
essence. It
we
goes to what
if we
you.
believe without evidence, then we're no different than the people who believed in thunder, who worshipped the
Evidence
thunder.
is what we get. Evidence is what you feel. Evidence is that
No,
peace
no.
of mind. Evidence is
If you see
sleeping.
the
It's not.
ocean split, and someone tells you, "Yeah, this is God's miracle, and this is the truth, and
No.
this is what is falsehood," you will believe with facts. You will believe in God with facts. It's no longer faith; it's belief. It's not even belief. You would know that God exists, and you would know what God wants from you. That's the difference here. That's why we read the Quran, why we study it, and that's what the
I love
mathematical
God.
miracle
I
gives
love
us.
God. And okay, we are talking the same thing, but in two different language. I think God is kind.
No, no,
God
you
is
said you're a
merciful.
scientist.
Sorry.
I'm trying
Yes, I
to.
am.
Yeah,
Yes, I am.
so.
Scientist
Can
doesn't
we
mean
please?
atheist.
Sorry. Can we just go by the list? And there's a lot of back and forth, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think
I
people
know.
are like.
Yeah, but I'm just pointing out why it's so important
Okay.
with
So who's on
facts.
the list?
You,
I would like to be.
Solomon,
Me,
go.
me too.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll let
Carl,
I'll
you're
let you
third.
I'll let you let you finish, and if Megan wants to talk, and then she can talk, and then I
Okay.
can talk, and Jeff can talk. But let's just give everybody the courtesy to finish their thoughts, and then the other person
Mm.
can respond.
Okay, okay.
But let's time. Maybe you can time the
Okay, I'm
the
gonna talk for 1 minute.
right.
Let me open the clock. Okay.
It's a presidential debate. Time.
It's 2, 1,
Over
0.
time.
1 minute.
Okay, so it is very important that your belief is supported by evidence. Otherwise, you're no better or no more truthful than maybe a Hindu who believes in the holiness of a cow and who will justify killing you if you hurt a cow. You would be in the same position as them. That's
No, see, this
why.
is again
No, no, I'm
flying.
not finished.
This is again
I'm not
Megan,
chasing
finished.
me with a
please. I
swan.
think we
No.
we can't we can't interrupt. You should wait for your
This
turn.
is why
Okay.
it's
Okay.
important
Thank
to
you.
have evidence. That's what the mathematical miracle gives. And it might not make any sense now, but but yeah, like when you study it, it will be so obvious, and you will. I mean, you will be amazed. You will be. It's. I don't know. You will be amazed. That's all I can say. Okay, 1 minute is up. Your minute begins.
Who's
Who's minutes?
Megan, if she wants to counter.
No, yeah, I get you. Yes, mathematical. I think that's where everybody is so fascinated by with that mathematical. And I'm sure when I dig through it, then I'll be as much. But that's not going to change my perspective as to the essence of my own being and how I connect to my bigger God who's around me, with me, and helps me, guides me. And that doesn't, I don't need any evidence. The evidence is me walking. The evidence is me breathing comfortably, loving people around me, giving people chance. That is enough evidence for me. I'm not out there. I'm not going to go magnify it to just run around and tell my neighbors and everybody. And I don't want them to believe what I believe, because within me I'm at peace. Within me I know my God has guided me. I know my God is with me.
Mm.
I know through the toughest time that I've
Time.
been through life, and what I've been. So God is great.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
So my
Okay,
turn, shall I?
Solomon's turn.
Yeah,
Speak
I think.
freely.
Yeah, I would say that. Like I think you have. It sounds like you reached a level of how do you say it? Saturation, where you feel that you have attained so much guidance that you can never improve upon it. Like the level of understanding you have about God and life and everything the absolutes, like it's reached perfection, and there's no going above that, you know. So I think that is kind of concerning, for a lack of a better word, because God is the one who guides us, but He doesn't mean if you doesn't mean that we're not, nobody's questioning your belief in God or anything like that. What we're saying though is that yes, God has guided you till now, and helped you in every way and helped you understand a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that your understanding that you have now, and you're saying nothing's going to change it. Like, even you said, even if you see the miracle, it's not going to change who you are, it's not going to change your ways. I mean, if that means
No,
that
no,
no,
I didn't say that. It's gonna add to my knowledge, Solomon. I
right.
to understand
Please
something.
let
See,
him finish first.
okay, go ahead.
I may probably misunderstood.
Oh,
We lost him.
you lost, Solomon.
So no,
Start
so
after
maybe
this.
if examine the evidence first, and if before we do that, I think it's kind of premature to just shoot everything out
Yeah.
before you have even realized, before you have even like examined it. I think it's just kind of preemptively like premature in a way, you know. So just take your time, like everybody's saying, take your time
We
to
lost him.
study it. The thing is,
The thing is,
The thing is what?
the thing is what?
We lost him.
I don't get your
what
things.
we're trying to do here is region one.
We
Huh?
lost
Okay,
you.
you start after this. It's me.
No, Hario. It's not you.
Why I cannot speak? I want to speak.
This person who's
It's my turn, and I'm going to concede and I'll go after Hario.
No, you Jeff, then Hario. But if you want to give up your position,
To
okay.
give up is just give up.
No, I don't want to give it up. Okay, should I go?
Okay,
But I
it's
want.
me.
Wait,
Shall I
wait,
go?
wait, wait,
saying
wait,
he's a
wait. I have to give
oh,
Megan a chance.
You drop out, Solomon.
Forget about
Okay.
Solomon.
Okay. Okay.
He's stuttering. We can't
Is
hear
it
him.
Morgan?
You can call me Meg.
Megan.
Yeah,
Oh,
I go
Megan.
by
Megan,
Megan.
Megan. Oh, yeah.
Megan, do you want to
Oh.
respond to Solomon? 1
Yes,
minute?
I do.
N-
I do, because that is not Solomon. You took it again to the extreme. I did not say I'm complete. I have everything. I am in continuance of asking God for guidance, and I get that on a daily basis. I am by no means, complete or defined or finished or whole package.
Yeah, Masha Allah,
No,
keeping an open mind is a great thing.
of course, because and I'm open to learning. But the thing I think what took me is that you guys think that I'm just going out of proportion or whatever. It's because I'm outspoken. I just said what I read, and because these two subjects were brought up before and repeatedly brought up on circumcision and homosexuality, I had to touch on it because I didn't get a chance to talk about it before, because it's been brought up not only once or twice in this study groups. But anyhow, I am not going to just say no. I'm not gonna, I'm open to reading. I'm sure when I understand these mathematical miracles, I'm sure I'll be on the same page with you guys. But what I said, Solomon, is that it's not going to change my essence as to who I am, as to my belief with my own creator, to Allah. My own God is my God, and nobody can take it away from
I'm
me.
gonna stop you.
And he gives me enough evidence. So so that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, we understand. But I'm pretty sure once you stand next to Moses and see the ocean split, you will change your mind.
Hario.
Harjo,
Okay.
go. Speak freely,
Oh
Harjo.
yes. Really? Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
5 seconds.
Okay.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say hi to Megan,
Hello.
and I'm glad you're smoking because I have a friend now.
That is
First, I
funny.
agree with you that every kind person, even is there's not submitter or not, can go to heaven. Yes, it's correct. No matter their religion is, they can go to heaven. That's correct. Because Rasat self said that everyone can go to the heaven as long as believe in God alone. Even his person is homosexual. Yes, because it's forgivable. But since we discuss in here, in this forum, we discuss only based on Quran, so all the limitation of that, we base it on the verses on the Quran.
Mhm.
As long as the person didn't believe to the Quran, they still can go to heaven. As long as believe in God alone.
Thank you.
Because in the Al-Baqarah said that only 3 requirements of salvation is believe in God, believe in hereafter. As long as the person is believe in that 3 kind of that, they can go to heaven.
Masha Allah.
As easy as that. Even they do circumcision, yes, they can go to the heaven. I don't care with the circumcision. I don't care with the homosexuality. Yes, they can go to heaven as long as they only believe in God alone. Because all that
Mashallah.
sin, is forgivable. That is what Rasad said. We cannot forget about that. That's Rasad said. But if we want to go to the high heaven, that's different. We have to, all of us have a dream to go to the high heaven. If you want to go to the high heaven, we have to follow what God wants on the Quran, because we're talking in this forum only for the Quran, not as a personal opinion, but we have to speak on the basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. So from all
Right.
this debate, I said, all of this debate, sometimes we put our personal opinion without any basis.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as we have on the based on the Quran verses, that would be different.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to say that, maybe again.
Thank you. That was very
Yeah,
clear. Thank you.
yeah.
Masha Allah.
Yeah, well said.
Is that well enough? I kill
This is
you, Ahmed.
this is why we're also different.
So can I smoking right now? Okay,
No.
let's go smoke,
Yeah, you
Megan.
deserve it. Go smoke, you deserve it.
Where
So
are you
Victor,
at?
smoke.
I'm from Indonesia.
Oh, you are from Indonesia. Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
so do you want to respond? 30 seconds?
I believe in that. I believe we are all children of God, and God is merciful and kind, and we follow his path. And there are many different ways of reaching out to him. And as you know, our brother just touched on it. Heaven is open to goodness, to submission, to kindness, to do righteousness, and only people who are evil And atheists and do not follow his path and do not believe and keep doing wrong in so many different ways, they are excluded. The rest is history.
Atheist is believe
Okay.
in God. Not atheist is not believe in God. Yeah. Atheist is
Yeah.
atheist. A is mean
Yeah,
not. Theist
I
is
think.
theology. They not
Yeah.
believe in religion. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean they didn't believe
God,
in
religion,
God.
God.
That's
Right.
different.
They are different.
Right.
It's
That's
but
true.
in
each atheist is
but in
different.
syllogism, yes. If someone believe in religion, they talking about God.
Yeah.
That's syllogism, right?
Okay,
Right.
so can we go to
Okay.
Jeff? Jeff,
Okay.
can
Oh,
you touch
sorry for
on?
sorry for responding. Okay, sorry, Jeff.
It's okay.
Sorry for
Wait,
responding.
wait.
Sorry.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
I
yeah.
have to wait.
That's
Stop.
I'm
okay.
glad you
Wait,
did though. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jeff.
So, okay.
You can speak freely, but can you also touch
Okay.
on
Alhamdulillah.
the only
So,
unforgivable sin?
okay. So, alhamdulillah, I want to just say, first of all, that, we come to this, we think we're believers. We say, I believe, we believe. And let's see what the Quran says about that. It says 33:41, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. O you who believe, you shall remember God frequently. You shall glorify him day and night. He is the one who helps you together with his angels to lead you out of darkness into the light. He's the most merciful towards the believers. So you're already a believer, and God is leading the believers out of darkness into light with the Quran. That is the point we're making here, is that we're saying, yes, we believe in God, but God says very clearly over and over in the Quran that most people who believe in God are not going to make it. It says it. This is not my idea. This is over and over in the Quran, that most those who believe, they do not make it to heaven. Why? And one of the beautiful things, this is the thing with this message, there are so many concepts that you have probably not heard of yet that have been expressed to us in this, from this messenger, that put the pieces together so incredibly. Now, the thing is why don't the believers, all the believers who believe in God, go to heaven? It's because they don't believe God as he is, that he is doing everything. Even the things Satan is doing, he's doing. And that you're either appreciative or unappreciative. You accept God's word and say, I don't understand it. I accept it. And it's my job to try to fit my understanding around it. Or you say, I'm happy with what I have. See, God is trying to lead the believers out of darkness into the light. Some of the concepts that this message has given us are mind-blowing. Like you were talking reincarnation, and that explains suffering with samsara. Well, message from the Quran is telling us about suffering. It's a nice thing from God that he's letting you know, look, you're not on the right path. Or it could be, suffering could be, if it's from a person who's under 40, they go straight to heaven. So all these children who are dying, all that stuff, they go straight to heaven. There's no coming back again to do reincarnation. This is Quran does not support the reincarnation idea. It supports that we were already alive. That's what this message also tells us. It tells us what happened to us before we came here. And also it's telling us the precious chance that we have here, that this is the third strike, that this is our last chance. That's what the Quran says. This is not me. The Quran is saying this is our last chance, that we've had other chances to choose God alone, meaning understand that God is doing everything. Another thing, this message tells us what happened to the Christians. What happened to their understanding? How'd they mess up that it's just God? How'd they put Jesus there? It explains it to that. It tells us how to find perfect happiness in this life. This message is telling us how to find perfect happiness. No problems whatsoever. No headaches, nothing. And it's all of these little issues that we have, hardships from God. It's so that we reflect and we change ourselves. This is most fascinating and beautiful aspect of the Quranic message, that it's a whole shift, that nothing happens to you without a reason. And if you are suffering anything, it's to reflect. The messenger said very clearly that the submitters, anyone who calls themselves a submitter, they're just starting. That's just the beginning. That the beginner, that's just the beginning. And from then, you have to mold yourself and you have to enter that God is doing everything. And you are taking these little pinches that God is giving you, and you are cleaning yourself and getting rid of the problems and getting rid of your ego and your ideas and your understandings, and you're stripping away. This is the Quranic understanding of the process, that we're just beginning. I cannot say I'm a believer. I can only say I'm a submitter. I am in the process and trying to strip away my erroneous understandings. And that is what's so beautiful. This message, I have only touched on some of the concepts that have been clarified from that are Quranic concepts that will just shatter your traditional secular or worldview universalism understanding. The final one I wanted to mention is the notion of judgment. It's the messenger said it very clearly, that do not judge is a satanic principle. That it is not that is not a good thing to say, that you're not saying condemning them, you're going to hell. We're saying to know right from God is give us the Quran so that we know right from wrong, and that we may apply it to our understanding, even amongst others. Because, see, you can't give your child away in marriage to somebody who's a disbeliever. You're going to have to judge circumstances. That's just of the wisdom that we have with this message. So, inshallah, God willing, that wasn't too oppressive.
No, mashallah, that was great.
Do you want to reply? Yeah, thank you, Jeff. That was, but yeah, you didn't mention idol worship as the only unforgivable sin.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Why didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well said, Jeffy. Well said, Jeffy.
I mean, Harry touched on it a little bit, and you also, Jeff, touched on it a little bit.
It's in the Quran that nobody can reject God's revelations. As soon as you do, you're out. It's a go to hell. So you have to believe in Quran once you got it. You have no chance of making it. Once you have it and you reject it, it's done. You're done. You're toast. Enjoy your life, because it's gonna be horrible later.
Yeah, because you're rejecting out of knowledge. It's not the same thing as being ignorant about something.
Yeah, well, it's because God said so. Because God said exactly, you cannot reject His revelations, or you will go to hell. That's it. Period. It's not because anything you think, is because God said. That's His law. So a believer, so-called believer, and then rejecting His revelations. So belief alone is not enough. And if you believe, then you would believe His revelation.
Yeah, also we know Satan believed in God.
Yeah.
Can you read Surah 2 verse 39, Edward?
I don't have my computer on. I'm using when I try to use my my phone for multiple things, the pen goes
Okay, I
on.
will read it.
Oh, thank you. Thank God.
This is Surah 2, verse 39. As for those who disbelieve and reject our revelations, they will be dwellers of hell, wherein they abide forever. So that's a bit what Edward is touching on. Right? You can't reject something you haven't gotten, right? So this is talking about people who read God's revelation and then reject it. So you can't react something without knowing it. So just pointing that out.
I think it's also people when you hand it to them and they say, "Oh, I don't want to touch that."
Yeah, but but they still need to be certain about it, like the evidence. They need to be first certain that what you give them is truly from God, because then anyone can come and tell you whatever, like Jesus is the Son of God, and if you don't believe it, then you are rejecting. It becomes how can I say, it becomes a dangerous thing. But so if you go according to the Quran, you can only reject what you study. Basically, you need to know what you are rejecting. So we can't just go to someone and say, this is the truth, and then if they reject it, they're going to hell. They have to reject it after first trying to verify it. Otherwise, it's not fair.
Mm-mm. I don't think that stipulation is in there. It sounds interesting, but I don't think you're allowed even that stipulation. Because then I could just say, "Oh well, I don't want to read it," so that I can have this little sub. What do you call that when you put it in the contract?
Yeah, maybe they get rejected from that point. What is it called? Misled from that point. But they can always come back to it later and study it. That's how it was for me. People told me, "Oh, read this, the Quran, read the Quran." I didn't understand it. I rejected it. I was an atheist. I rejected it. I didn't know what it is. Why should I believe in something I don't even know what it is? And it's not even proven. How can I believe in something that's not proven? So how is it fair to put me in hell?
Oh,
because
no doubt about it, you were headed there.
So yeah, I'm the moderator. Anyways, so yeah, and then after a while, I discovered the mathematical miracle, and I started reading and learning, and right, and still there were a lot of things I didn't agree with. Right, I didn't reject it. I just put it on the side. I made notes, wrote on a paper everything I didn't wholeheartedly accept. And then I went back to it with time. I learned more as I gained life experience. I started to accept other things, some of the things on the list. And then, and then eventually after like 6-8 years, the list was empty. I could wholeheartedly say, with full sincerity, full honesty, say, I believe in everything. And only then did I feel, yes, now I'm a believer. Now I'm truthful. Now I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So it's long process.
Yeah. I still never. I still like don't call myself a believer. In the sense that I don't really know if I am a believer. Like I say, I'm a submitter, and God says belief until. Don't say I'm a believer. Say I'm a Muslim. I'm a submitter until belief is established in your heart. I mean, you have doubt, no doubt whatsoever. Which, inshallah, God willing, maybe inshallah we are. But I just feel like for me, it's just I feel very sort of like almost egotistical to say that because like that I'm saying really like I have reached this level of perfection in my belief, which I don't know if I have, but I mean it's really like God knows.
Yeah, it's a process.
Yeah. Masha Allah. Yeah, alhamdulillah, great study. Yeah, I was looking at the verses that you read, about God promised them victory over the stronger group, but they still wanted to face the weaker group. And I think that goes back to, and they acted as if they were being driven to a certain death. And I think like that really goes back to our trust in God. It's just it was interesting. Before the study started, I had some extra time and a series on Netflix, and it was basically, there are these people, and there are these this other army that is about to attack them, and they're in constant danger. And then there's two brothers, and that are part of the community that's being attacked, that are debating with each other. And they're he's telling him like, hey, we can defeat them, and we trust in God. I mean, he doesn't say trust in God, but it's quite centered around God. But he's afraid to face them. And when I read these verses, that the similar idea that there were these people that acted as if they were being driven to a certain death, because they didn't really have full trust in God, that God will protect them and support them. Because that's God's promise. If you do support God, and if you do the right thing, obviously God doesn't need us, but we need God in our life. And if we do support God by doing what God tells us to do for our soul in this test, God will support us in His promise. And then if you don't do that, that exposes your doubt, that you don't fully support, you don't think that God will support the believers, you don't think that God will grant them victory in that situation, like particular situation, right? And I think for us that could translate and apply in every aspect of our lives. Like, we have to trust in God. A lot of times, we get discouraged or hesitate when it's risky, it looks risky and dangerous, because sometimes we do lack the trust in God, and we're afraid, and we're more worried about what the people might think, or things like that. And or we were not, God says the one of the qualities of the believers is that they're fearless. And you can never reach that state if you don't realize, if you don't have that level of trust in God, that God alone will suffice you, and He's the only supporter. I mean, these are things, but these are things again that are easier said than done, and they don't come naturally. Like, you have to really grow your soul and worship God, and in order to experience that and have that assurity.
Yeah, it takes time, and it's different for each person. Yeah, Masha Allah. Thank you for that. So, any other verses you guys want to discuss?
Masha, you
Yes.
read? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. I can't find my list all of a sudden. Okay. Darn it. So yeah, I lost my list. I have a whole list of things I want to talk about on this, but okay. Come back to me, please.
Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna pick.
Can I make a comment?
Edward, yes.
I believe it was already touched upon, but this whole world, we can go ahead and say whatever we want. People could say whatever we want, and then everybody has to do that. Especially in this country, you can get away with a lot. God advocates his freedom, but God also advocates what He advocates in the Quran. So we come on here because we want to advocate what God advocates. And if God says no adultery, then we do not advocate otherwise. If God says no homosexuality, we do not advocate otherwise. If God says do not add regulations to the religion, we do not advocate otherwise. If God says that it's evil and idol worship to add regulations, and what you're doing is basically putting yourself up as a God next to God by thinking that you can make a regulation or somebody else can, we advocate all these things. And if anybody wants to advocate otherwise, they should look at themselves and see what I'm advocating is contrary to what God is advocating, and this is not the place for that.
Yeah.
Of course, homosexuals advocate homosexuality everywhere, and they have the freedom to do that, but we don't do that. It depends
Yeah,
on
of
what
course.
do you want to be? Do you want to be a submitter, or do you want to become a believer? Do you want God to remove all the doubt by defying God? I don't think that's the path to getting guided. I've had many doubts and questions, but I never chose a path to spread them and defy God and just go straight up against him like that. It was between me and him, and I never wished to poison other people with my issue, with my doubts. I kept it to myself because I didn't want to hurt anybody. And I felt like it was a dangerous thing to do. So I would talk about it, but not certain way of like kind of defiantly going against it. That's always wanting to be. I wanted to be defeated. Like I wanted my doubt to be defeated. Like, anyways, it's kind of getting a little esoteric.
No, you're right. It's as if we would advocate theft. No one here is like advocating it. So yeah, we should maybe be more strict.
That's why we.
But yeah, we're still each one is on a different level. We're trying to teach each other and move forward and stuff like that. So who wanted to?
I
Jeff,
think
you wanted to?
Yeah, I never found my list, but I can.
Your sound quality is low. Could you?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, we'll wait for Jeff to come back then. God willing. Yeah. I mean, Masha Allah, yeah. You said about money and children are tests. And you said you don't have children, so you can't comment on the children. But you have, you have nephews and nieces. Quite a test.
Yeah. If that's how it is, I don't want children.
Let's stretch forward to the Ahmed.
If that's it, then I'm already in hell.
I wanted to comment on money and children too, but after Jeff, inshallah.
Well, we're still waiting for Jeff to find his list. Will it take long?
No. I just wanted
Okay,
to
go
say.
ahead.
I just wanted to say, God has. We know from the Quran that we will be tested about our claims. That once we say we submit to God alone, and then God is going to put us to the test to, see. Okay, now tell me you're gonna submit under all circumstances. Money and children are a test by name. There are other tests too. God says through your lives and hardship and everything. But money has two ways, is tested by two ways. One is that when we have a lot of provisions and when God withholds provisions, So that is one test that are also money can be the biggest idol. And that's why money is even mentioned before children. It's idol of 99.9% people because they're consumed by it. While God says He has assigned our provisions before our creations. So we never need to worry about money. Yes, we do our due diligence. We go to school, college, university, get a good job, but we never make it our idol. Like we should not be consumed by it. That, oh God, what if I lose my money? How to make so much more money, And also, as you mentioned, Ahmed, that how charitable we are. What do we do with our money? What do we do with our excess money? God says there is compulsory, mandatory charity, which is zakat, 2.5% on every income. Masha Allah, all submitters pass that test. But then God talks about charity, to the needy, to the poor, and all that. And what do we do? Are we gonna be busy, keep hoarding money, or are we gonna be charitable, taking care of people around us? That's one thing. The other thing is children. Children can be easily, become our idols. We're so consumed by their presence from day one. Like the verse says in Quran, then they ask for a righteous boy, and we give the boy, and then they make him idol next to me. How do we make our children our idols? Like, we are worried about children, we're just controlling things a little too much, consumed by their well-being and this and that, even though knowing well that every soul has a predetermined destiny. We take good care of our children. God says raise them as righteous children. We take care of their needs and everything, but we, once again, do not get consumed by them, because God says whatever occupies your mind most of the time becomes your God. So those are the two key factors that we have to be very mindful of, that these two items don't become our God. Thank you.
Can I
Thank you.
piggyback on something that Najat
Yes.
said? Okay, when you talk about the children and things, yeah, I agree. Because one of the things that I see here, I don't know if that's going on in Canada, but there seems to be this ideology that parents, especially the mother, no matter what the child does when they're adults, you defend them, no matter how wrong they are, no matter how much no matter what they've done, whether they've, killed someone or not, you are there to defend them. And I've always thought that goes so against what God says, which is, I don't care who it is right and wrong is wrong. And you defend right, advocate against wrong. And here I see that's their idealization of what a perfect mother is, especially the mother.
Yeah, that's true. Didn't think about that. How they will be biased to protect the children.
Well,
right.
It's the concept of setting up another God beside God is like considered shirk, right? Or idol worship. Not God, but other things too, right?
What happened?
I don't know.
I don't know what happened. I wanted to comment on verse
Right,
31.
Wait, Jeff, are
I
you
think she got
ready?
dropped out.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yes.
which verses do you want to comment on?
About 5 of them, but I can choose just a couple real quick. Okay.
Let's see if.
Yeah.
Wait. You had a couple of verses, right? Solomon is gonna comment on one verse.
Okay.
Solomon, go.
It's okay. He can go first.
No, he's commenting on multiple.
No, he can go first.
Okay, he goes.
Jeff can go first.
That is too nice.
Is Big still there?
I don't know, but your microphone, Jeff, is stuttering.
Oh, okay. How about now?
Better.
Am I clear?
Okay.
Yes.
Stand up with the phone
No,
towards
no,
the
no,
ceiling.
no. Take that back.
Okay. It's no good. Am my signal bad?
No, you're fine. You're
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
What do you
Comes
take
and goes.
back? Okay.
Oh my god.
What?
Oh, keep talking, Jeff. You're fine.
Yeah, keep talking.
Okay. All right. So what I wanted to bring up was in 820 and 821. And so 820. You believe, obey God. Messenger is God's messenger. And do
Okay,
not disregard him. Am I gone?
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read
Yeah.
the verses. O you who believe,
Can I?
obey God and his messenger, and do not disregard him while you hear. The disbelievers blocked out.
Okay, that's one.
Do not be like those who say we hear
No,
when they do not hear. Okay, continue.
Okay, that's now. I was just going to read 820 and 824, not the ones in between. So the reason why I'm making, I'm pointing out that we're talking about. Can you guys hear me? You can't.
You're a banjo, Jeff. You're a banjo.
Oh, you know what?
Could you? Is it the connection? Like, is it the Wi-Fi distance or what is it? We can't hear
You guys talk about something else.
Solomon, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, my comment was about 31. It says, when our revelations are recited to them, they say we have heard. If we wanted to, we could have said the same things. These are no more than tales from the past. And, I always found this, like, bizarre, and, like, how they could say that, and the audacity to ask God to punish them, to shower them with rocks from the sky, if this is really the truth. Actually, this is something that I experienced when I first became a submitter. I was trying to give the message to someone. I was very enthusiastic about it, and I was telling people, and then there was this one person who was a friend of my friend, and used to be, and he literally said that. He says, he says, if this is the truth, then why doesn't God punish me right now? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's it. Standard disbelieving response. Like, oh yeah, strike me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't realize that, God's scheming is formidable, so he gives people enough rope to hang themselves, You've given enough chances to look around, examine, and then, if you are destined to disbelieve and disregard, then you'll be led in that direction. And not even that, like, it doesn't stop right there. I mean, of course you're going to disbelieve, but then you're going to continue to disregard, continue to commit evil. And it makes sense that, like, let's say if someone's a criminal and he commits one crime and then he's jailed and that's it, but then you don't see the full extent and the full potential of this criminal. I mean, in an ideal situation, like, if you're able to assess the full extent, the full spectrum of this person's behavior, and then you punish them, like in an ideal situation, like that really is God's system, because I mean, in the worldly sense, of course, if there's a rapist, you can't just let him go around and see how many people they can rape. because obviously, you know, you're endangering other people, but in the sense of, you know, people being disbelievers and wicked, I mean, God allows them to experience and live through their full extent of disbelief before they're punished, so then they don't have an excuse on the day of judgment that they didn't get enough chances, you know. So God gives you chance after chance after chance after chance to work on it, and you know, you're put through different situations and different examples of people are there for us, you know. Then let's say, you know, someone can say that, well, I was in this situation because I did this because, you know, these were my circumstances. Well, no, I mean, there's other people who had similar circumstances, but you know, they didn't make the same choices as this other person did. And I mean, all these things will be shown to us on the day of judgment.
Can I say something?
Yeah, it was part of
Jeff first, or what's that? What did you say?
well, Edward.
What's going on? Jeff first?
I don't know where Jeff is, but I said what you said earlier, Edward, also goes into this. People are given like part of the revelation. They are invited, but then they reject it.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Edward.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't see the footnote that says you can just refuse to take the Quran and then you won't be held accountable for rejecting the Quran. Is there a subtitle footnote for that? A little stipulation in by extra law? I don't think people are allowed that little secret way out of rejecting his revelations by saying, well, if I don't open it, I will never be guilty of rejecting his revelations.
No. Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's rejecting without examining it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's in the book. But there was something else I wanted to say. Can I say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
The person that Solomon talked about, if you look at it in another way, which is kind of for us, after having read God's revelations many times, we'll see what I'm about to say. That if they don't, just the fact that that person said that and chose that choice is already retribution. They're already suffering because God did not remove the veil from their eyes because they never chose to God. That person thinks that they're making that decision, and they did make that decision, but God is not helping them to make a better decision because they never chose God to have him help them make a better decision. So they say, bring the retribution. So it already is, you're already living. God's judgment is already upon all of us. When God says, if circumcision is not in the Quran and somebody else says, yeah, add it to the religion. If you like that, you should question yourself. Do I like what God says, or do I like what somebody else says? Why do you like what someone else says? Are you being allowed to like that person? Do you like what God says? And then he'll help you to, you know what I mean? To accept what he says, and he'll guide you as long as you seek him. But if you're not seeking him, then you're going to like what other people say. If God says no pork and somebody else says, you know what, pork today has been scientifically modified, it's been corrected, all the dangers have been removed. But God says no pork, but you like what the other person said. The other person says, you know, wine is healthy for your heart. If you like what they say, which is contrary to what God says, maybe that is already, it is already a consequence. And I know why. It's because you didn't choose God, and you didn't choose his words, so you don't believe his words, and you believe the other word, because you did choose somebody else by default. It's very complicated, but you're not going to get there by being disobedient and defiant to God.
Yeah, it counts as a sin.
You have to choose God, then he'll guide you on his path to him. It's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. For example, there are people who eat pork and they are still going to heaven. So, you know what I'm saying?
Oh well,
They still
that's
have
good.
their religion, like their level of faith or whatever.
I think there might
Of
be
course,
people.
but we are not advocating. Just like you said earlier, we shouldn't be advocating these things.
May I talk about those verses?
Yes.
Or okay, you can hear me well, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, 20.
Alhamdulillah.
The point I'm making is about 8:20. Oh, you believe, obey God and His messenger, and do not disregard Him while you hear. It's lowercase Him. So you're hearing, you're live, you're hearing. Do not disregard Him. Oh, you believe, obey messenger. So there's a lot of people who say, well, that's the Quran is His messenger. Well, when did the Quran become a hymn? The hymn. Do not disregard Him. The people do it all the time. Well, that's the Quran message. It's the hymn. Well, this is different.
Yeah.
It says Him. Do not dis. And it says also in verse 8:24, "O you who believe, O you who believe, you shall respond to God and to the messenger when he invites you to what gives you life." That's lowercase He. You might think that's God inviting you with His message in the Quran, or perhaps people are saying, well, that's the Quran inviting you. Well, it's saying He. It's a lowercase He, and He's inviting you to what gives you life. So that's the thing. We fight these battles against, well, what is the messenger? What's the message? What constitutes what obeying is? Who do you obey? Well, obviously you're obeying the messenger. That people say that. Well, there's a trap in there because you have to kill the evil who is
stuttering.
To obey. Oh, sorry.
He said all he said was he got cut off when he said you have to kill.
What are you saying, Jeff?
Am I on or am I off?
Yeah, you're on now. Go.
Okay. I said you have to kill your ego when it comes to an agreement is a messenger from God. Am I still on? Oh.
Basically, yeah, you're right. Actually, it's very interesting. Are there really people saying that
What?
It is referring to the Quran here?
Yes.
Jeff, you were breaking up. That's why we were laughing, because you broke up right when you said the word you have to kill.
I'll kill you.
Kill you.
What is these people say? You have to kill what?
But then it says here that it's referring to a person.
So I guess we should say for Jeff that we should complete Jeff's sentence until he gets back on, that he was saying you have to kill your ego.
Yeah.
You can't hear me?
Oh, now you're better, it sounds like.
Yeah, actually, its translation is you have to kill yourself. Literally translated, you kill yourself.
Oh, God. You need to explain that.
No, it's not on YouTube.
So who's going to killing yourself? Who's going to suicide first now?
Oh man.
Let me know if
oh man, Jeff.
You can't hear me.
Yeah, this is really.
You can't hear me?
We want to hear
Yeah,
you.
we
You
can.
gotta fix that. Is it satellite internet or is it fiber?
I think Satan's doing it because Jeff is one of the better speakers. Cutting them off.
It's hacker do that.
You're being hacked.
By the gym.
He's being hacked by a Muslim called Osama. I'm just missing.
Okay. Is anybody there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try it this time. So, okay, the whole point, as I'm saying, is that, yeah, there are people who make the argument that that is referring to the Quran, because there's a lot of effort to make it appear that people who are looking at the appendices and all of the information from the messenger is idol worship. And that they make a distinction because they say the Quran is the only thing. And so I'm saying, okay, if the Quran is, yes, the only.
Who did that?
I don't know.
I think somebody just called it.
Oh, okay. Continue.
Wow.
What?
Did
What's
he
going
just get
on?
abducted by aliens?
I don't know. I need to do my salad. So be right back.
Oh,
Talk freely.
so
Can
who's
I,
taking control of the list?
obviously,
Echo.
huh?
That.
How about now? Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh,
Better to
good.
turn off the camera, Jeffy.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Better to off your camera.
Turn off my camera.
You turn off your camera.
Turn off my camera. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see. Oh, because it takes up too much bandwidth. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Gotcha. Okay. So the whole point I was saying is that, yes, people do make the argument that the messenger is the Quran, and that it's idol worship to follow any of the teachings that Rashad has talked about that aren't specifically mentioned in the Quran. That in other words, if he's saying something like about the heaven before we came here and evidence that came about that, if it's not specifically mentioned in the Quran, then he's adding stuff to it. There's people who advocate this thing that you have to be literal about it, that it's in the Quran, specifically in the Quran. And so I'm saying that when you come to these verses, "O you who believe, obey God and his messenger, and do not disregard him." The him is lowercase him. It's a him. It's a male. It's a and so the thing is I'm going against that argument that cannot be the Quran. That's a him. And also, and I just wanted to say for the ones who make that argument that we're idolizing Rashad by taking his stuff out of context. I'm going to read this. This is from one of the. This is from I think 34 at 3 minutes. It's an audio tape, and it says the Quranic verse he's responding to is, "Do not obey the disbelievers and the hypocrites." Oh man, just a second. I can't believe my I'm sorry, my computer is chugging so slow that I can't scroll accurately to find the thing I wanted. Okay, hopefully this is it. It just went away. Darn. Okay. It keeps moving on me. All right.
Try hitting the computer. That's primitive method.
Yeah, really, exactly.
bang on it.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Just too much going on. Okay. Anyway, he says, forget it. I can't. Obviously, God is not interested in this happening. So I'll let you guys talk. Yeah, I'm being blocked. Let's put it that way.
No.
Come on. Okay.
Got it?
So, yeah, it's here. So this is from 3 minutes in on Quran Study 34. And he's talking about the verse that says, do not obey the disbelievers and hypocrites. The disbelievers and the hypocrites, when they give up on you and they find that your argument is very strong and unbeatable in the Quran, they tell you, you worship Rashad Khalifa or you follow Rashad Khalifa. They claim you've lost God, which is all ego. So do not obey the disbelievers and the hypocrites because they are the ones who utter that statement. When a person utters that statement, they know full well we worship God alone and we do not follow Rashad Khalifa or worship Rashad Khalifa. We follow what God says. If Rashad Khalifa says anything that is not in the Quran, you'd be the first one to say that is not in the Quran. Why do you say that? It is your duty not to obey him if it is not in the Quran. As a matter of fact, in this surah, it says, do not follow the Prophet Muhammad. We're talking about the Prophet. It says, do not obey him if he is saying something that is not righteous or something that is not in the Quran, in other words. I forget which verse it is, but we may come to it today. Do not obey the disbelievers and the hypocrites. When they tell you that you follow Rashad Khalifa, just look at them and smile because this reveals their stupidity. We're going out of our way to destroy idols, not to make idols. Our only God is God, and we have reached a conviction in our hearts that God alone possesses all power. We reached a conviction in our heart that no saint, no prophet, no Muhammad, no Jesus, no Rashad Khalifa, no anybody, no one other than God can guide us. I think there was a good demonstration of this at the conference that I see people whom I fall in love with, they fall by the wayside. Obviously, I can't do anything to help them because it's between them and God. If they don't have the conviction in their hearts, there is nothing in the world. Excuse me. If they don't have the conviction in their hearts, there's nothing in the world that they can do or any else can do to save them. And God gives examples in the Quran. Noah's son. Does Noah love his son? Right. I mean, if anyone gets does Noah love his son? Noah is one of the great prophets. He couldn't help him. Abraham. How about Abraham? How close is Abraham to God? As close as he might be, right? I mean, if anyone gets very close to God, it will probably be as close as Abraham. I'm sorry, this is going on and on. Anyway, I'll just get right here. He says, so we are people who know full well that no human being, certainly not Rashad, can help you in anything except, here it is, give you the message, do this with you, discuss it with you, and this is all we can do. Therefore, there is no idol worship. Therefore, when they tell you you worship Rashad Khalifa, you smile at them, they are not even worth 1 second of your time. So he's saying the only thing they can do with you is do this with you, discuss it with you. That's what he's talking about. These are all discussions. Everything that we're reading here, everything that we're listening to, they're discussions. And this is the only thing the messenger can do. And so we're listening to the discussions. We're not saying he can save us. He can't make our health good. He can't guide us. But we can listen to the discussions and we'll see if God guides us. So God willing, that's what I want to say.
And I think there's a difference between when Rashad was alive with the people, because they were interacting and discussing, what has happened from different groups, I guess, in the submitter community. For me personally, when I read what Rashad writes, when I listen, he's always advocating Quran alone, always. With the Quran, Hadith, and Islam, that's what he's constantly saying that. And I've listened to the Great Debate. I've listened to a couple of other things, and he says, I don't care how right it sounds. I don't care how good it is. If it's not from the Quran or in the Quran, or I think it's in the Quran, we reject it. And, again, I think there's a big, huge difference between when Rashad was alive and was discussing with the people, and, when, years later. And it's not Rashad's fault how people decide to view him. And, that part that was read in that Jeff read, when it says him lowercase, I don't know why anybody would think that would mean Quran. Of course it means the messenger, but all the messengers and prophets, they preach the same thing, God alone. That's, just one God. And the Quran, I don't know, it's 6114 and 115. And 638, it constantly talks about everything that you need to know is in the Quran. I don't like the idea of, well, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're stupid, and that's wrong. I don't believe in that. I don't agree with that at all. I understand what the message is, but I do think there's a difference between when he was alive and the way people treat him now. Not all groups, but there are some groups that I've read about it and I've seen, so I mean, that's my thoughts on it.
Can you give an example? Oh, sorry, my phone is messed up.
Okay, I'll talk. Anybody there?
Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
All right. So yeah, I've seen this concept too, that it only refers to the messenger while he's alive. Now that was explained about prophet, the word prophet. And so when the Quran talks about the messenger making a ruling on things, and you take your message, you take your issues to the messenger, and when he makes a ruling on them, you obey. So are you saying it's possible that you're saying that that was only when he was alive?
That's not what I was saying at all. What I was saying is I'm referring to what you just read from the tape, and what I understood what you read from the tape. He was talking about now. He was right, because he was saying all we're doing is, studying Quran and discussing. He was right. It's not as you say, like, not callous, but like you're bored with it. Yeah, we've heard that argument before. I'm not talking about that argument at all. I'm saying that the way what you read, I understood it in the context of what they were doing when he was alive. And I'm not saying, well, then you disregard everything afterward. You know, because he died, that's it, throw everything away. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that what he was saying, it makes a great deal of sense in the context of he was alive and they were having Quranic studies and he was discussing with them and sharing with them his understandings. I get that part, you know, but I've heard that old argument before. Yeah, that doesn't fly because that's not what I'm talking about at all.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. When the messenger.
Ahmed, can you put me on the list, please?
Oh, you're on the list. Go for it.
No. After
What
you
list?
spoke first.
What list? He just
After
go
Jeff.
back.
Just came back.
After Jeff.
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say. Okay, go ahead.
No, Jeff, you go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
Okay, so when I'm saying that it's an old argument, I mean that there are people who are advocating this understanding quite extensively in different sites, and I don't accept that kind of an understanding, because what I'm saying is that that's me. I don't accept that. I say that the information that we get on these tapes, the audio tapes and the videotapes and the appendices, everything, the messenger is in many times. He was like, is that tape going? Or they make sure they stop so that they can get the tape. And not only that, he said, this is for the future generations. He said, because this may be too heavy for the initial generations. These understandings, these discussions, we're hearing them in real time. We're hearing them, and you can understand the context of them. You can understand that he tells you where he's getting this concept from the Quran. This is real wisdom that was given to us. That's how I see it. And to suggest that the wisdom is somewhat depreciated, or somehow you can't take that wisdom that you can see with your own, hear with your own ears, and that you can't take that as wisdom because there's some depreciation because he's dead now. I don't accept that.
Can I make a comment, please?
Yes.
So Satan's new tool is before it was to make Prophet Muhammad larger than life, as good as God. Books and books of wisdom after him were created as, basically hearsay, but they say, okay, this is a sunnah of Prophet Muhammad.
Hello? You dropped. You dropped off. Where is she?
My phone is being such a problem today.
I thought you were gonna say my phone is such a brat today.
It's being a brat anyway. So now is the other, because Satan would not use the same trick. Once you're educated about something, he's gonna present his ideas. He's older than all entire humanity anyway, so he knows every trick. And now it is to just make messenger so little, and what he's explaining, and totally forgetting the role of messenger of the covenant. Quran is already here, was here for 1400 years. What God had chose a specific job for Rashad, and let's not forget that it's a very important job. God's mercy, it's God's mercy that he would send a messenger to clarify the Quran, teach the Quran. This is not a small thing. We take it for so much for granted. I wouldn't know about the Great Feud. It was all along in the Quran. That made the day and difference of day and night in my life. If I didn't know what was my purpose in life, I wouldn't be here today. That just, it was a question. I was like I think 6 to 8 years old used to come to my mind since then. Why are we created? And it used to give me anxiety like anything. You would not believe it. And there were so many other questions in my mind. Why we worship God? You know, why what does he want from us? Does he need any worship? Why? So all of these things are in Quran, but God's mercy on us that he would and remember, when it's messenger saying anything related to religion, it's not his opinion. Everything is dictated, and all the knowledge is put by God to make certain matters very easy for us. And here we are. For example, if the insurance is not mentioned by name in the Quran, are we gonna say messenger was wrong? You know, that's just a simple example. But in the light of Quran, obviously 1400 years ago, the name of insurance wasn't even there. But we know who to prove. Quran tells us, put all your trust in God. Do not gamble. So it comes under those categories, you know, goes against the teachings of Quran. So today's product is insurance. Messenger says insurance is haram. I'm gonna say I hear and I obey. Whether I hear from the audio or I read an article from the submitter's perspective, that's my job. Because we are in the time when things have been recorded, printed, and audio taped and videotaped. That's God's mercy. Why somebody would come in this time and age? You know, so we have all these tools for our salvation. Let's not put our opinion over and above God and his messenger. God's words are in Quran. Messenger's opinion is his explanations about the religion. Anything besides that, for example, he says, oh, I love to take a walk in the morning. We're not going to say, oh, this is our duty to do that. You know, no, it's not. So that's the difference between when messenger is talking about God or talking about his personal life. Thank you.
You know, I think people are at different places. You know, I do. I think people are at different places, and I think that should be respected. You know, I don't agree with the, everybody, that has been doing this for 20 years, they've had the luxury of going through the process. And, when you find someone who's, just new at it, or, has been at it just for a small while, you got to respect the process and not take it personally if there's a disagreement, because you've got to respect the process. Everyone is guided when God guides them. And when they're enlightened, that's because God's the teacher. He shows you. So I don't think anybody should be defensive about it.
No, I don't think anybody is.
You're not. I'm not honest, Najat.
But I also wanted to say, but it's when we discuss our belief, we're not dismissing the audience's belief either. But this is what, when God says, you hear and you obey, so we come from a point, and I absolutely understand it's a journey. Nobody has these understandings overnight, and it's not to dismiss you, but then we both can, like, I like what not like, but it's very courageous of you and Megan to come to the group and be always, it's better than any kind of hypocrisy, that you bring your doubts, your questions, your beliefs out. And if it happens, it happens. It doesn't happen. Nobody can hold a grudge against anybody, because we all have to be worried about our own soul. Not like, what am I gonna do if if somebody else doesn't believe like that? And I can only speak from my belief and let the other person go through the process. Of course, that's why we are here and discussing it amicably, mashallah.
Mm-hmm.
Can just say something that is off topic? Of course I can. I'm the moderator.
Yes. Now you got it.
Anyways, so as you all know, we stream on YouTube when things go right. Anyways, and we try to keep those videos 3 hours.
Okay, yeah,
So,
it's kind of
so yeah,
long.
so sometimes we might say, oh, let's not discuss that, or this and this. It's not that we don't want you to like talk about stuff. It's more like we're trying to condense the study within those 3 hours, and then, you know, after we have discussed the verses, you know, we want to focus on the verses. So someone reads for 45 minutes, and then we discuss the verses. And then after we're done with that, usually maybe there's like 40 minutes remaining of those 3 hours, or maybe an hour, maybe more, or maybe there's no more time remaining, whatever. But after we're done with the verses, then, you know, it doesn't matter what you like. If you have something on your heart, speak it, right? So it's not like we are trying to tell you, no, not allowed, you're not allowed to say this or this or this. Sure, during this, when we are, that might be true when we are streaming and discussing, trying to focus on the verses, right? Because it's a Quran study about those verses.
Yeah, inshallah,
then,
let's keep that in mind from the next
yes,
week.
yes, yeah. So I'm just
inshallah.
Okay. Oh, inshallah, I'll end the Quran.
So sometimes we keep the stream going after the Quran study and stuff like that. But most of the time, if it is past 3 hours, we turn it off.
Yeah, I think.
But the discussion continues afterwards, and that's okay. It's no problem.
We haven't turned it off yet. We're still live. We're still live.
We can turn it off now.
Oh,
No,
okay.
wait. I don't want you to turn it off yet, because I wanna have a little bit of a rebuttal against something Ahmed said. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You had said that if you see God as love only, then you are an idol worshiper. And I wanted to rebut that a little bit. I wanted to say that you describing God as love is far from being an idol worshiper. I thought that was, you know, not a very nice thing to say. You know, all the divine names reflect the all-encompassing love is God. It's through these names that we try at least to have the sense of the presence of the infinite through the finite, right? So the names of God, it serves many purposes, and it helps us to become closer to him because it gives us the possibility of knowing him through them, his divine attributes. And yet still we do it through we still understand the attributes through our human assessment and our own view through the lives that each of us lives, right? So I hear so much that we have to kill our egos. And I believe that one of the ways that, you know, God gave us a very gentle way to correct ourselves and to let go of what harms us through clothing our egos by and with his divine attributes. You know, this helps us to change, to transform, to relinquish our weaknesses or prejudices or negative habits. So for me, from my understanding, far from seeing God as love and therefore an idol worshiper, for me, it's the exact opposite. It connects us to the divine, and who better to teach us that than God himself?
Also, can I say something before you turn off the stream?
No, we're not turning off the stream, I think. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I meant the
I-
YouTube. Before you turn off YouTube.
Yeah. Go ahead, Edward.
Even outside of religion, I'm going to go way back to an earlier topic of this that I heard when I first joined. I was late, but I pretty much already expected the subject. And when I heard it, I was like, yep, there it is. A biologist is not the same as a chemist. They do not have the same qualifications to make the same decisions. A chemist is not the same as a doctor, foot doctor, nor is a foot doctor can do what a heart surgeon does, nor do any of them have the same knowledge as an oncologist who knows about cancer. But I see a lot of opinions from people who are not specialists in cancer talking about circumcision. It seems like these people are very arrogant. They think because they have some education, but they know that they're scientifically unqualified to say the things they're saying. They know it because that's what science is. You're not an oncologist. You're not a penile doctor. You're not a doctor of the whatever that specialist is. If you're a biologist or you're a chemist, you're not that. And if you do that, you're just violating the principles of even the qualifications that you have. You can't say things without having exact proof. Isn't that what it's supposed to be about? You just don't go around making claims, scientific and medical claims, without having it proved first. So I don't know why they put themselves on a pedestal to say that they're specialists. Like it happens in a lot of things, I guess. You could take it like a guy who cooks Mexican food and doesn't know how to cook Japanese food. Like something. I'm just reaching for comparatives, but I think I've already done enough. So the arguments are just annoying.
Yeah, you made it clear, and you're right.
I want to give
an expert on every subject. That's impossible.
Yeah. Can I share something quickly?
Yes.
My middle daughter, when she was about 4 or 5 years old, she used to get a lot of tonsillitis and throat infection, and her tonsils will swell, and she had to go through antibiotics all the time. In those days, it was a normal thing to get the surgery done and remove tonsils so you don't get infections anymore. So doctor here in Canada, they booked, my doctor said, oh, get her surgery done. She's only 5 years old, my God. So they booked the room and doctors were all set. I was staying overnight at the hospital. And in the morning was the surgery. They prepped her and everything, whatever. Suddenly it's just something divine, or I don't know what you call it. I wasn't a believer then. Something just made me quickly pick her up and leave the hospital without even telling the doctor. I'm not going to go through with this. So trust me, within weeks, a new scientific research. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Can you hear me?
You left without telling the doctor.
Yeah. And then within a couple of weeks, I saw this article in the newspaper that the newest research says if you remove tonsils, then there's so many other infections happens. There is a reason for even these glands here, because you can get chest infections, asthma, because these are like filters. These are filters to absorb. I was like, oh my gosh, like what was I going to do? So subhanallah, God prevented. It was absolutely divine intervention. You know, I didn't even know those things, those even to use
Yes,
things like
subhanallah.
subhanallah.
Divine intervention.
Yeah, and since that day, she never got that. She never got the sickness again. That's so weird. I just, it was a miracle, honestly, and I was not even a
Alhamdulillah.
believer then. Unbelievable.
But God knew eventually you would be.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, God, for His guidance. Yeah, but look, like now, it's a thing of past. So it's always evolving, it's changing. You know, science, science, science.
You know, Edward, I heard a saying that they said if there really was anything true about a specialist or an expert, then we wouldn't have the problems because it would already be solved. You know?
Well, it's interesting that even oncologists themselves who are specialize in cancer, I've seen internet debates on subjects, and I think oncologists have came in and said like none of these people even specialize in cancer, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't know even how cancer develops. It's like, and they're making all these claims about prevention of cancer.
Mm.
And it's
Well, you know, they
ridiculous
did a study.
without
Yeah,
being oncologists, without being specialists, without
right. They
having
did on oncologists. They did a questionnaire, and 71% of oncologists said that they would never recommend chemotherapy for themselves or any member of their family.
oh my
My
God.
God.
Yeah,
What?
that
Wow.
was, I think that was last year the study came
Oh,
out. Well, does it make sense? I mean, you know, you think about a table filled with, you know, God's vegetables and fruits and herbs, and then you put the next to that table chemicals, and you say which one's going to heal. And by the way, you know, when they say when you look under a microscope, fungus cancer looks exactly like a fungus, and they believe that cancer truly is a fungus.
So don't get me, I'm not sure. I'm vaguely remembering something that was said a long time ago that I read on the internet that at that time, maybe 15, 12 years ago or something like 12, 15 years ago, that maybe longer than that, maybe much longer ago, that even some of the preventative measures that they use for cancer do not prevent cancer. If you can cut off your leg and it's not going to stop it. If you have it doesn't work that way. It's when it happens, and that's it. It's happened.
Yeah, cancer seeks the weakest part of your body. You know, you know, you know, one of the things that they recommend, which is apricot kernels, you know, because apricot kernels has the laetrile, God's laetrile, the natural, and because cancer cells develop a very hard shell, and you can't break that shell, but the I think it's B17, which is in apricot kernels. You have you can only eat a little bit of them, like maybe 9 or 10 a day, and that's pretty much it. And it breaks that hard shell, you know, and helps you to get rid of it. You know, to me, the best way is always the natural way.
We have people that were from a certain area, and they were among us. They are among our congregation, and they have started promoting circumcision as being a part of Islam, and they've been doing it for about 8 years. Some of them have just went to medical school or something, and I think they just graduated. And I don't know what kind of level that they are that they can start talking about cancer without being oncologists. I mean, these people, as far as I'm concerned, should lose their license. They just graduated, and they're already giving cancer advice, and they're not. They I don't know how it works, but I think they're just basic level doctors. I know one of them a few years ago said he failed the test like 7 times or something ridiculous, and now he's an expert. Suppose it's just ridiculous.
Well, here in America, the pharmaceutical companies hijacked the medical industry. And it really is not a health care, it's a sick care. And it really is about, giving as many pills. It's like they said, we have everyone, and now they're working on teenagers. We have the young through vaccinations, we have, and pills and, Ritalin, and of course the elderly and the middle-aged. And, they wanted to really sell Lipitor, is it for, cholesterol? And so they lowered the, what is a healthy cholesterol by 200 points so that, it automatically brought about 5 million people into that realm that had to buy it. And what people don't understand is that cholesterol is your friend, because cholesterol is the glue that when it sees any tear in your veins and arteries, it goes and it patches it with the cholesterol. So, and for a long time, they were given these pills to lower your cholesterol without telling you that it's going to take up all your CoQ10 enzyme from your liver, and then you die. And it was 15 years before. I mean, they knew it, but it always seems to take a generation, but it was 15 years before they started to recommend CoQ10 with the Lipitor. So, and you got to understand too, that they've only had like 4 hours of nutrition in all their medical studies. It's always about pills.
Let me add one more thing. They even brought up the Pediatricians Society, American Board of Pediatricians or something, and I found out that there was a religionist who was the leader of that board when I did my research, and he claims that he's pushing circumcision, but it's not religious purposes, but he is a religious, and he does push circumcision within his religion as being a religious thing, but he's saying he's trying to claim to us that he's not biased when he pushes it on everybody else. But the thing is, they also push homosexuality. So who cares what they say? They also push that it's homosexuality is some kind of medical thing. So I really could care less about their opinion on everything. I don't take them as experts on everything by far.
Can I end the broadcast yet?
Yeah. Sorry.
Are we broadcasting?
Yes, I've been trying to shut it off for.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
man, we're gonna be in a brawl with the AMA.
Okay, so I'd like to just shut off the broadcast. I'm going to just say, inshallah, we will get together on Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and God bless everyone, and may God guide us.
Inshallah. Salāmun Alaykum.
Salāmun Alaykum.
God bless.